everybody. If you could please. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We are going to go ahead and get started with our meeting this evening. Thank you all for being here. Adila, can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Hilpern.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Chow.
Here.
Tanya Vudi.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Cartha.
Here. Sergio, you've got the...
Yes. I move that the Board of Education approve tonight's meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
Hilpern.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Chow.
Yes.
Tanya Vudi.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Cartha.
Yes. We will start off with superintendent and board remarks.
Yep.
So we have comments?
I do. I have a few. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everybody here today. And today is Earth Day. And I think we should make sure that we celebrate Earth Day and think about the ramifications of climate change and what's going on in and around us, both here in Evanston and around the world. And I think from a perspective of District 65, every day is Earth Day. And it's something that we will be working on even more so in the future. We've started some very important work with the green teams and some community members who are organizing around how we can be a much more sustainable entity here in Evanston, and also how we can work to engage our students in the issues of the climate. And it's an interesting one. I mean, I think for students who might be here tonight, if we think about those days in the winter where it was 25 below zero one day, and 2 days later it was 52 degrees. There's something there that is going to call for young people in our school system to be the leaders on policy, on advocacy, on everything from recycling and sustainability to making the big decisions moving forward. So again, I want to encourage all of our students and all of our parents and caregivers who are working with our kids to think about the science and the policy and the advocacy work and the challenges that are before us. And we at District 65 will continue to celebrate Earth Day on a day in and day out basis. I want to take a moment, and I know some of the members of the Dawes community are here tonight, and I want to reach out to staff and to parents and to those who are concerned. I want to start by stressing the importance that Dawes plays as one of our precious schools in District 65. It's an important place. It's something that I've had the opportunity most recently and over the 5 years that I've been superintendent to see both the enthusiasms and the engagement of the community. And I know and I can feel it, and I felt it most recently in a very good and very open and very candid staff meeting. I've received lots of emails as we approach today, and I just want to recognize the importance that Dawes plays. I also want to acknowledge the concerns and the passions, the critique that leave many of you feeling as though the school has lacked in stability and that the school has lacked in the type of supports from the broader district that are necessary to be a successful school. We will appoint a principal tonight, and we'll appoint a principal for the long run. And what I want to do and what we all want to do is work together as a community to move forward. I've already reached out to staff members from the staff meeting that we had. Community members have approached as well, and I am willing and committed to make tonight a starting point with new leadership, but a starting point and around some restorative practices and restorative work that needs to be done as we work on a transition and as we work to make to really recognize, not even make, recognize the importance that Dawes plays, that the educators at Dawes play in the school. So I welcome. Oh my God. That's ominous on all angles. That's the best sound effect I've ever had.
Or the other way. Here she comes.
That is crazy. So
as he says her name.
Wow.
I do welcome and I do encourage the staff and community engagement and feedback that I'm certain that we will hear tonight, and I'm certain that we just heard from the skies and from the gods above. So, but thank you, and I'll look forward to working together. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Do we have any board comments?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. You know, I as a parent, I sat alongside my colleagues and my fellow parents over at Dawes through the principal process, not through all of it, but through some initial parts. And you know, we've talked about this before as a board and as administration, that we really need to revisit the principal selection process. You know, for me, I really care about authentic community and family engagement, and I think it's critical as we move forward around the equity work as a district that we really get that right. And there's many parents who came to me and Anya at our board cafe, which is an attempt from us as board members to engage with families and staff in the district to try to connect and try to elevate your voice and your concerns around the things that we do here in the district and to update you on some of the good work that we're trying to do, as well as some of the challenges that we have. Again, I, along with my fellow parents, again, feel hurt by the process because, again, I think we just need to do a little bit more work in regards to making that process something that's authentic engagement. Because I guess it feels, and this is nothing against the person, you know, the principal is going to be appointed today. It's just something that we as a district have to work on a lot better. So as I think about that, our principal selection process, I think about King Parents, King Arts, organizing demanding partnerships with the district to address Black student achievement. You have Washington parents and staff demanding supports for their TWE Latinx students and families, as well as other issues brewing up across our schools. I can't help but think about all of it as a response to the way our school districts is lacking in engaging families and other community stakeholders in authentic ways and as true partners in our many initiatives. As we move towards planning for next school year, I challenge all of us to think about how we can strengthen our parent and family engagement practices for the classroom level to the administrative and board level. We have to revisit how or whether our community understands and is clear on what our functions and roles are as board members and administrators and what role parents can play as our partners and what we can do to provide this understanding and clarity for them and across the district. And I will be abstaining today from the consent agenda. So.
Are there any other board comments? I just want to echo the sentiments around for the Dawes parents, staff members, community members who are here. We definitely have heard you. We have received your emails. We've seen the communications, and we are committed to making sure that the transition process, I think all of us at this table, the new principal is committed to making sure that this transition process goes well and that Dawes is set up to be, to continue to be a successful school. We have asked Dr. Gorin and his team to share with us a specific transition plan around how that's going to happen, and we will be discussing that on May 20th. So we are hearing your concerns and we are working to address them. Okay, with that, we will move on to one of the highlights of our meeting, our high five recognition. So do you want to go ahead?
Let me start. We have the honor tonight of recognizing several outstanding colleagues as part of the High Five Celebrating Excellence in District 65 recognition program. Last year, we launched the High Five program with the goal of publicly acknowledging the incredibly dedicated members of our team and to engage our community in the important work happening throughout the school district day in and day out. We're grateful to Byline Bank for their continued support of High Five. Through their sponsorship, each of our recipients will receive a $75 gift card, a framed recognition certificate, and an invite to a celebratory luncheon for all of the year's recipients next month. Before we invite our recipients up to the podium, I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize Ms. Yvonne Boone, who was unable to join us tonight due to a prior commitment. Ms. Boone is the head secretary at Willard Elementary and was nominated by one of her colleagues, Elizabeth Griffin. As part of her nomination, Ms. Griffin wrote, and Ms. Griffin is a teacher at Willard, quote, "Ms. Boone is the rock of our school community. She is a dedicated professional who shows her commitment to all of our students in our building on a daily basis, in addition to providing support to staff and families. She knows where we are here for the students and puts them first. She knows every student by name and knows even more than that about many of them. She offers guidance, warmth, and words of wisdom to all members of our school community." Ms. Boone shared in response, quote, "I find interacting with District 65 families rewarding because I'm a product of the Evanston-Skokie School District. My position allows me the chance to give back to the community, which helped me become the woman that I am today," end quote. I'd like to thank Ms. Boone for remaining a part of the District 65 family for all these years and for her continued service to the students, staff, and families at Willard. I'm now going to invite our recipients and those that nominated them by school up to the podium for further remarks. We will wait and do a group picture at the end. And please, when you're done after you're being honored, please feel free to go back to your seats until we do the recognition, all the recognitions, and then take the group picture. So first, I'd like to invite Matthew Evans, special education teacher at Rice, up to the podium along with two of our social workers, Deb Drosh and Lisa Levine, who nominated Mr. Evans to share a few remarks. I'd also like to add that Mr. Evans also received nominations from several of his students.
Hi there, my name's Lisa Levine, and I'm a speech therapist in the district and work at Rice. And I'm just going to read my submission that I sent in. I'm so grateful to work with Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans is an incredibly talented educator who meets the needs of the diverse group of learners in his classroom. He forms genuine and strong relationships with his students, which promote a sense of unity and camaraderie in his classrooms. His students present with multiple and unique challenges, and Matt is able to accept them and find ways to foster their growth in a safe and supported environment. His use of physical space, curricular materials, and how he communicates with students is an exemplar for many. He makes it look effortless to teach a wide range of abilities on the same topic at the same time, and I'm constantly learning something from him and greatly value his role in partnership as a special education classroom teacher at Rice.
And I just want to, I've been working with Matt since he started in the district 3 years ago. He's a new teacher, and he is one of the best special educators I have ever worked with in my 20 years in special education. He has an ability to connect to each and every student in their level, and one of the things I will say the most about him, he is the most patient person I have ever seen, unflappable, actually, and I don't know if anybody's ever been to Rice Education Center, but sometimes it can be a little chaotic there, and Mr. Evans is always even being able to de-escalate kids and do the massive undertaking of teaching our kids how to read, how to comprehend, how to do math, higher level math, and get them ready for transition social emotionally to less restrictive environments. He does an incredible job. He is tireless, and I was inspired to nominate him because every single student who comes in his class loves to come to school, and they love to come to school because of Mr. Evans. So I just want to thank you. It's great being your class.
Mr. Evans, thank you so much. We're so proud of you, and we're appreciative of the care and compassion that you give to our children day in and day out. Now I'd like to invite Michelle Ferguson, music teacher at Washington Elementary, up, and Ms. Ferguson was nominated by one of her colleagues, Callie Cleary, who will join her at the podium to share a few remarks.
Yeah, hi, my name is Callie Cleary. I'm a special education teacher at Washington School, and I'm also a product of District 65. So last fall when I moved schools, I went from a school where I had been teaching at for several years to a school where I had never taught, but had actually attended as a student. So on my first day, I was meeting a lot of new teachers, but also reuniting with people that had been my teachers in years past. And a smiling woman came striding up to me, gave me a big hug, and said, "It is so good to see you." It was the type of hug you give to a dear old friend. And the truth was, in that moment, I did not know who she was. But I answered back what was also the truth, with her hug and her warm spirit, that it was really good to see her too. And it turned out that this teacher was Michelle Ferguson, our music teacher, and we had not met before, but her welcoming spirit is the same one she greets her students with every single day when they enter her classroom. My office is very close to the music room, so this has allowed me to get to know Michelle as a person, but also to see and hear the things going on in her classroom each day. She has students in her classroom more than any other teacher I know or have ever met in my teaching career. They're invited before school, after school, on her lunch, whenever she has free time to learn about, hang out, make music together. She understands the importance of allowing kids the space to explore and be creative and be expressive, and helps to grow the whole child. She works day in and day out to develop trusting relationships with every single child at Washington. So as a special education teacher especially, she is highly collaborative in helping students with special needs succeed and thrive in her classroom and in the school building. She truly embodies the spirit of joyful learning. She's an outstanding educator, and I'm so happy to see her being recognized today.
Thank you so much, and I have such a great memory of Michelle, the day that we did the peace circles outside of the schools when the high school kids were walking out in protest of gun violence. Michelle led a sing-along with 500 kids in the Robert Crown yard as though she was singing with every single kid. It was really quite lovely. So thank you so very much. Lastly, I want to invite Fred Ortiz, Instructional Technology Facilitator in our Curriculum and Instruction Department. Chase and Kelly Best, Lincolnwood educators, up to the podium. Mr. Ortiz has supported media arts projects at the school and was nominated by Ms. Chase, who will share a few words.
So, sorry, Fred, I didn't think of this first. Our superintendents did. So a couple of weeks ago, I sent an email to our superintendents because I just wanted to share how incredibly fortunate we are to have Fred working with our kids. And they asked me to share this with you today. We're here this evening because Fred is not only good at his job. We're here because he goes above and beyond his job, and this is a valuable trait in our teaching field. Last year, I asked Fred to come in, or I'm just going to read this. Last year, I asked Fred to come in early on Wednesday morning to give my Future Problem Solvers teams a 30-minute lesson on how to make a multimedia presentation for a new option at the state competition. He did, and they did well, with only 30 minutes of instruction. This year I asked again, but he also accepted our invitation to accompany us, Lincolnwood and Haven kids, to the Future Problem Solver State Competition and support the video presentation portion of the program. The kids and I left at 6 a.m. to prepare for the written portion of the event, so when Fred arrived later that afternoon, the kids were very excited, stressed, over-rambunctious, but with great patience, he encouraged them, guided them, and helped them to stay focused on their storyboard plan and their video project. They planned over dinner with Fred running from table to table. We returned to the hotel where they videotaped, dropped in pictures, wrote music using GarageBand, filmed using the green screen, did voiceovers, included transitions, credits, and every other effect they can think of. He supported every crazy idea they came up with while still requiring them to do it themselves. When it came time for their presentations at 7:30 that evening, we had some technical glitches, but Fred helped the kids work through them. One very touching moment was when I watched, I'm going to cry, when I watched Fred sit on the floor with a very upset sixth grader from Haven for close to 30 minutes as they did their techno talk that I didn't understand, and calmly figured out how to solve an issue that would make or break their presentation. Mr. Ortiz did not only support the kids that day. I've done this program for close to 20 years without much help. On April 5th, Fred supported me. He jumped in and took over the presentation section of the competition, and every team, every child, both schools, came home a winner. And 4 of our winners are here today. Fred, you supported them, so they couldn't help but be here to support you, and we have more.
5 years ago, someone told me I should ask Fred Ortiz to help with a crazy idea I had, making a music video with our graduating fifth graders. When I contacted Fred, who really didn't know me very well at the time, I don't think he realized quite what he was getting himself into. But he was excited about the project and went above and beyond to make the video amazing. Since our initial video, he's worked with me and the fifth graders every year on our video, which has become a tradition at Lincolnwood for the graduating fifth grade class. Excuse me. He spends countless hours in his schedule coming to film the video. He often works through his lunch to edit the footage and put the video together. He never seems to be bothered. I forgot to italicize that, by my many ridiculous ideas, texts, and emails, and I think that's the most amazing quality about Fred. He is an extremely calming presence. He's the most helpful and generous person to have working in our school district. Anytime he's in the building, teachers sense it and flock out of their rooms and find him, and no matter how busy he is or how much I want him to only pay attention to what we're doing, he carefully listens to every person's problem and helps them through whatever problem they're having. It's a pleasure to work with you, Fred, and congratulations, you truly deserve this honor.
And I too want to echo that. I've worked very closely with Fred over the years. Any of the videos that you might have seen me in is because Fred is behind the camera doing such wonderful work, and you are a calming soul, and I really appreciate it. I'd love to have the recipients come forward, and then we'll give the awards. And please join me in one more round of applause.
I can give you an hour and a half, actually. So it doesn't feel rushed.
Thank you all to the recipients and the nominees. I truly love hearing all of the stories every month. We will move on to our National Board Certification recognition. So, Stacy, if you'll.
Tonight, we would like to honor 4 District 65 educators who successfully achieved the National Board Certification. These educators were supported in our District 65 National Board Certification cohorts, which are led by Rebecca Condon, our ELA teacher and Nationally Board Certified Educator at Haven, and Marie Breitenstein, retired D65 Science Educator and Nationally Certified Educator. Rebecca, are you here tonight? Come on up. Come on. Yep. National Board Certification was designed to develop, retain, and recognize accomplished educators and to generate ongoing improvement in schools nationwide. It's the most respected professional certification available in K-12 education. The certification process requires teachers demonstrate standards-based evidence of positive effect they have on student learning in alignment with 5 core propositions. 1, that teachers are committed to students and their learning. 2, teachers know the subjects they teach and how to teach those subjects to students. 3, teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. 4, teachers are systematically looking at their practice and learning from experience, and teachers are members of learning communities. NBC teachers must exhibit a deep understanding of their students, content knowledge, use of data, and assessments in their teaching practice. They must also show that they participate in learning communities and provide evidence of ongoing reflection and continuous learning. Their national board certification is a culmination of at a minimum, a 2-year experience where they're engaged in ongoing collaborative learning and development and demonstration of proficiency around, through artifacts, led by Rebecca with one cohort and Marie Breitenstein in a second cohort. And we're supported by Illinois State University in this process. The 4 educators that we'll recognize tonight will officially move the district to 24 nationally board certified educators across our district serving our students. If I could have Jen Carbone come, oh, actually, our first person we're recognizing tonight could not make it because of a family obligation. Jennifer Carbone, who's a kindergarten teacher, 2-way immersion teacher at Dewey, has received her national board certification. Jen has a deep commitment to children and families. She values and is committed to ongoing learning for herself so she can continue to bring out the best in her students. She contributes to her school and district by taking on leadership positions to foster a rich learning environment. She will be the Dewey Sit Chair in the upcoming year and has chaired PBIS and is a regular member of their culture committee. She also contributes to the district level as a member of the TWE teacher community, has piloted curriculum, and regularly uses her voice in order to advocate for dual language learners in District 65. So congratulations to Jennifer Carbone as one of our 4 recipients of National Board Certification. Jennifer Federer, if you could come up, please. Jennifer is an excellent class. So one of the things I did with this, I reach out to people who know these teachers incredibly well, which are their principals and some colleagues. So the comments I am sharing do come from principals and from members of their school. Jennifer's an excellent classroom teacher and a teacher leader. As an educator, Jennifer brings energy, enthusiasm, care, and challenge to her students. Her students feel the warmth in her room, and they know they are valued as students, creators, and artists. Jen serves as the sit chair for her school and the first grade team leader. She has outstanding communication, organization, and thoroughness, and her team shares their work, their processes, and their protocols with other teams in building models for others within the building. Jennifer, congratulations for your National Board Certification. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. All right. Oh, hang on, we have pictures. How about that?
Should. We're going to crash too.
We have 2 more educators that we'll acknowledge this evening. Raul Maniquez, are you here? Wonderful. So Raul just corrected me, Maniquez, so my apologies. So Raul is the definition of tough love. He consistently pushes his students to perform at their educational peak, but provides high degrees of support and scaffolding in both his material and approach to ensure that all students can find avenues towards success. In this role, it's commonplace for Mr. Maniquez, thank you, Maniquez, to sacrifice lunch or his planning period to support students on their homework or in preparation of an upcoming assessment. Mr. Maniquez, his disposition is a combination of understanding yet firm. He works to understand the social emotional state of students and more specifically how their past has impacted their willingness and ability to learn. Through his understanding of students, he is able to make the necessary adjustments in the manner that he works with his students. Congratulations. And our final recipient, Carla Stone. Carla, able to, yep, there you are. So Carla is a middle school science teacher. She's a committed, high-energy educator. What do you have? All right. Yes, she's going to advertise in a quick moment, but she's a committed, high-energy educator who's always willing to dive into learning that she believes will excite and engage her students. Carla, a bright light of positivity, connects with her students, removes any fear that may be in place about a student not being a science kid, and showcases students' gifts and talents. Carla has demonstrated leadership at King Arts and Nichols, as well as with the Evan-STEM Initiative as a science educator, and is actively involved in the NGSS learning and science curriculum adoption. I've also seen Carla out and about in the community, blowing up all sorts of bottles and getting kids from this tall to this tall excited about science. So congratulations, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Oh, maybe, you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
So just really quick, some amazing things that are happening in our district with sixth grade. It's Earth Day. It's been Earth Day all year across the district in sixth grade. What's happening is all the sixth graders are engaged in creating an invention. According to Mayor Hagerty's CARP, Climate Action Resilience Plan, that attacks climate change in Evanston. They are showcasing their inventions May 16th. Are you writing this down? May 16th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. But there's more. If you would like a quick taste of what you will see on May 16th, at Nichols in 2 nights, April 24th, Nichols is putting on their very first invention convention from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. But I wanted to thank the district because they paid for all of this for a national board certification, which is close to $3,000. I don't even know if I'm telling you that, but I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. So I just wanted to say thank you to the district and come on out and see these sixth graders. It's amazing, really.
Hand the microphone over, but even though Rebecca just snuck to the back, it's okay, don't worry. Just a very sincere thank you to Marie Breitenstein and Rebecca Condon, who lead these national board certification cohorts. It is teacher leadership, it is commitment to the national board process, it's commitment to the collaboration of all the educators that work within these groups, but it is truly their leadership that has brought this to the district and maintained it within the district. So thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you, Marie.
Thank you, thank you. What amazing educators we have in this district, so thank you. With that, we will move on to public comments. I'm sorry. We have translation services available for anyone who needs it, so do you want to make... So members of the public are welcome and invited to address the Board of Education during open public meetings. Speakers are discouraged from using the public comment period to air concerns about or voice personal attacks against specific district employees, being mindful that the public comment period is not a suitable forum for fact-finding or resolution of disputes. Rather, we strongly encourage members of the public who have concerns about specific district employees to communicate with us following district communication guidelines available in our student handbook. Please remember to state your name and that you have 3 minutes to address the board. We do have a number of speakers tonight, so when you hear the timer go off, we will ask that you wrap up whatever comment you are making so that we can make sure that everyone has sufficient time to be heard tonight. So our first speaker will be Leslie Williams.
So good evening, Superintendent Gorin and board members and community members. My name is Leslie Williams. I live in Evanston. I have a daughter who graduated from Haven and who's currently a senior at ETHS. And I'm also a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, which is a national organization advocating for Palestinian human rights and against Islamophobia. And I'm here to thank and congratulate the teachers of Dewey School for honoring and recognizing Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar during Women's History Month in March. Congresswoman Omar is highly deserving of this honor. She's the first naturalized citizen from Africa and one of the first 2 Muslim women to serve in Congress. In 2017, Time magazine named Representative Omar among its women who are changing the world, a special report on 46 women who broke barriers in their respective disciplines. As a refugee, a hijab-wearing Muslim woman, and an African American, she is a role model for girls and women of color who do not often see themselves represented in American institutions of power. Although Ms. Omar has taken controversial positions, we must recognize that all great political and social justice leaders have been controversial and unpopular at times. Revered justice activists Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Cesar Chavez, Angela Davis, Muhammad Ali, Nelson Mandela, and Mahatma Gandhi were all considered radical, revolutionary, and dangerous at times before becoming the icons they are today. Being controversial is not a reason for leaving such leaders out of our school curriculum, but rather evidence that they are making a difference. At JVP, we are disturbed by accusations of anti-Semitism against Representative Omar, and we believe them to be groundless. Our own Illinois Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky has defended Congresswoman Omar, as have Senator Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Ben-Ami, the president of J Street, a pro-Israel organization. Thousands of American Jews signed a statement in support of Congresswoman Omar, and she has received support from Jewish organizations, including the Jewish Youth Group, If Not Now, and Jewish Voice for Peace, as well as the NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, and Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Given the horrendous death threats and racist Islamophobic targeting of her recently, I am especially proud to see District 65 acknowledge her as a role model. District 65 is a diverse school system with many Muslim, African, and African American families. It is vital that the district continue to highlight such role models for all of our children, even when they are not universally beloved. Thank you.
Jeremy Wilson.
I'm Jeremy Wilson. It is a little forward to discuss a report the board will receive later tonight, but I would like to compliment highly Ms. Sprague and her colleagues on the Early Childhood Strategic Plan. Its most impressive aspects include a specific acknowledgement that a disproportionate number of Black and Hispanic children are not reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade compared to white children. That the district's own analysis in 2016 demonstrated that children who enter kindergarten with reading skills perform almost equally by the end of 3rd grade, regardless of race, that Black and Hispanic children are poorly prepared with reading skills by kindergarten entry, and most of all, the report demonstrates that minority children in the Joseph E. Hill program are no better prepared than other minority children in the district. The report also acknowledges that results of the Illinois Snapshot of Early Literacy, better known as ISIL, represent the district standard for reading readiness. Most impressive, however, is the balance of the report, which sets forth a plan with specific goals for the Joseph E. Hill programs to correct these deficiencies and to increase the number and percent of children in the program who meet the district's ISIL standards. based on the district's own research that should increase the number of children 4 years later reading at grade level. Since 2016, 3 years of children have missed the benefits of this plan. Going forward, many minority children will be the beneficiaries. I do not mean to minimize the other laudable goals in the report. Assuming acceptance of the report, it will be important that the board provide the support it requires. All organizations are essentially conservative and tend to be resistant to change. The plan envisioned will require considerable cooperation or buy-in by current teachers and staff. The plan envisioned will require, the board needs to emphasize that it shares the goals of the plan and calls upon all the members of the JEH community to help achieve these educational goals. Finally, I request that the document, A Strong Start to Kindergarten, which was produced in September, be recalled, and a new document which incorporates the expectations and ISIL standards outlined in the report be issued in its place. The Early Childhood Strategic Plan is a very welcome document to our community. Thank you.
Jen Shea.
Hello, my name is John Shea. I apologize for my poor handwriting when I signed in. I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about the overcrowding concerns that we have at the Nichols School. I have a son who went through Washington and then Nichols and now is at ETHS, and a daughter who's in 7th grade at Nichols. And I'm not prone to hyperbole, but I do feel that every time I've been there over the last 3 or 4 years, I have the sense that the school is bursting at the seams. And so when I look at this as a teacher of nearly 20 years myself, I start to wonder about the impact that that has, not just on my son and daughter's education, but on the social, emotional, and academic well-being of all the students at that school. Simply put, the larger the class is, the more key factors start to suffer. The student-teacher relationship, the student-to-student relationship, the ability to differentiate, the ability of the teacher to meet the needs of diverse learners, whether it's an IEP or a 504, a student struggling with depression, or a student just having a bad day. The most influential study dates back to the 1980s called, the STAR Report, and it showed that if you took students and randomly selected them and put some of them in a room of 22 students and some of them in a room with 15 students, that smaller class ended up having the functional equivalent of 3 months of extra education. And that's a profound impact. The alternative to trying to address this overcrowding issue is to perhaps make the school make the building bigger. But that's a profoundly expensive proposition, and so I do urge the board to consider other alternatives, such as reducing permissive transfers or looking at the boundaries of the district so that we can address this overcrowding issue. Thank you.
Roger Williams. Oh, no, he's got Roger Williams. Yeah, sorry.
Good evening, Dr. Gordon and the staff, teachers, and parents. My name is Roger Williams. I'm the president of OPAL, Organization for Positive Action and Leadership. I wrote this is titled King Arts, Deja Vu. According to Daily Northwestern, an article, according to the MAP test scores, no black student in the 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade met the college readiness benchmarks in math or reading. In addition, black students make up a larger portion of the bottom quartile in reading and math than any other demographic. Now, this is deja vu. This is history repeating itself. Ever since the report on Black student achievement in District 65 distributed in April of 2016, OPAL has been advocating for District 65 to take seriously the education of Black children, to work on mitigating the achievement gap. You clearly have not. We have had meetings with you, analyzed data, heard your promises to try harder. Oh, you've had some incremental accomplishments along the way. The adoption of SEED, adoption of Beyond Diversity. You even hired a director of Black student achievement. But at the end of the day, you have not come up with specific goals, plans, nor programs to significantly improve the education of Black children. The proof of this statement can be found when many of these same Black students enter high school unable to read at the 9th grade level. So the situation at King Arts is but a current example of your failure to take seriously the education of Black children. Causes me to wonder what other District 65 schools are having the same results.
Tabitha Bonilla.
Samantha, I think, is two behind me, so we'll speak together.
My name is Samantha Mock. I am the mother of a kindergartner at Dawes. He's in the tween program, and I also have a 3-year-old daughter.
And my name is Tabitha Bonilla, and I'm a parent of 3 children at Dawes Elementary School. As part of the group of parents that sat on the interview committee, we'd like to speak to you about the search process at Dawes. From our perspective, the inclusion of parents and teachers in the search process has appeared to be nothing more than a formality that was undertaken to give the semblance of stakeholder involvement. In so doing, the district administration gave us a fleeting and inconsistent glimpse into the principal hiring process, leaving both parents and teachers feeling dissatisfied and disenfranchised by this process. If the school board is advancing the values of equity, transparency, and community engagement, this process missed the mark. And our concerns should have been heard and discussed before decisions were made. First, there needs to be transparency at all stages of the search process. It was unclear to those of us in the interview room how many individuals actually applied for this job, and it was unclear how those who did apply were screened for the job. Perhaps more importantly, despite our continued concerns over candidates in the process, the district has not been forthcoming at either directly addressing our concerns or providing alternative elements of support for candidates that we were concerned about. Second, the district needs to have better communication with teaching staff and families at Dawes and signal that they are listening and responding to our community concerns. From the job profile that was created and the candidates that were selected, it was unclear how much consideration was given to recommendations made by the Dawes teaching staff in consideration of what type of profile would best benefit the Dawes community. The recommendations provided by the Dawes community were not detailed in the job description and not included among the feedback forms of the principal forum, and it was certainly not embodied by at least half of the candidates presented to us at the Dawes principal forum. Third, the ways that the district has discouraged discourse and dismissed our community's concerns is problematic for a district that is trying to envision and support equity. The actual format of the principal forum highly privileges particular types of individuals. Those that speak English, those that have the ability to be at the school starting at 4 p.m. at a weekday afternoon, and those who can commit at least 4 hours of their time on a weeknight evening. When the PTA and those of us in the interviewing room suggested continued dialogue about the process and to deliberate about shared perspectives, particularly with those unable to be there, district administration strongly discouraged such efforts and visibly signaled frustration at us for trying to inform people who are unable to be present. Not surprisingly, once Dawes community members were apprised of the situation, they overwhelmingly signaled their dissatisfaction with the candidates and with the process in a statement totaling over 150 parent signatures.
At various points, teachers and parents have shared our concerns with the district. We have been told, number one, that our thoughts were only welcome during the evening of the forum, and that the decision is entirely Superintendent Gorin's. Number two, the district administration knows better than anyone else about who should be hired. Number three, any information that we have from teachers, parents, and publicly available data disqualifying candidates is erroneous, irrelevant, and according to one administrator, lies. Number four, should be dismissed because we are not representative of the school at large. Let me be clear. There is great confidence that the teachers at Dawes speak with unique expertise, that the teachers have been working despite having a lack of consistent leadership, and as parents, we speak strongly in appreciation for the labor of our teachers. Additionally, unlike district administration, those parents invested in this process have communicated regularly with teachers and other parents to ensure that our information is accurate, relevant, and supported by a critical portion of the school population. While we believe that the right leader will clearly support the efforts that teachers have been making, it is striking that a critical mass of parents and teachers in our Dawes community are so strongly opposed to two of the candidates that they would rather have another interim principal than redo this search. Our teachers are committed to educating our children. We as parents support them. We respect their concerns, their ideas, and appreciate their commitment to our students. We ask that the school board also support our teachers so that they might succeed in providing a safe, equitable, and welcoming environment for Dawes students.
Thank you. Marullo?
Marcelo Worsley.
Oh, Marcelo, I'm sorry, I couldn't read. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marcelo Worsley. I have 3 daughters that attend Dawes. Now, instead of reiterating some of the arguments that I've already made, I'd actually like to put you guys from the perspective of research, namely by intertwining important pieces of education research into this discussion. In addition to being a Dawes parent, I'm an assistant professor of learning sciences at Northwestern School of Education and Social Policy. In talking to you tonight, my overarching position is that Dawes is not in need of leadership, but is instead in need of support. Amidst these last 5 years, as a school that has been forced to deal with inconsistent and at times outright destructive principles, Dawes has exemplified what leading scholars like Jim Spillane and John Diamond would call distributed leadership. Far from being devoid of leadership, the Dawes teachers and staff enact the very leadership practices and interactions that enable it to continue to innovate in spite of not having a permanent principal. Across this distributed network of leaders resides a wealth of knowledge, compassion, ingenuity, and resilience that greatly surpasses that of any one individual. Moreover, it is in this distributed community of leaders that understands the needs of the Dawes community. And while I'd love to touch on, the research justification for the various needs identified by our community, I'll spare you in the interest of time. Shortly after the principal forum, teachers sent a signed letter to the administration voicing their concern about the candidates being nominated and made apparent their preferred candidate. This response was met with defensive posturing and dismissiveness. Parents, who also play an important role in distributed leadership of the school through formal roles on the PTA and as room parents, as well as through ad hoc interactions at the Dawes Garden and on the playground, also came forward to voice their concerns with the proposed principal candidates. For instance, this past week, as we just heard, representatives from Dawes PTA gathered more than 150 signatures from concerned parents. As you've heard, the signed letter reiterates the concern raised by the teachers and indicates a clear parent preference. This information was once again dismissed. Now, personal opinion aside, this dismissiveness flies in the face of the most fundamental research on how people learn, as both parents and teachers are central players in a student's overall learning ecosystem. To this point, Professor Johns Bradford, in his highly cited book, How People Learn, about to come out in its 2nd edition, notes that in the face of change, school districts must ask themselves, did the school attempt to involve parents and other community stakeholders in the change? Unfortunately, you can't check that box if your attempt is disingenuous or if you do not actually follow through on the stakeholder input. To conclude, I just want to say that researchers have identified that this distributed model of leadership leads to improved student achievement and increased teacher retention, to name a few benefits. All of this is to say that Dawes is not looking for a leader. The leadership is already there. What Dawes is looking for is a principal who can find their place within that model and effectively support the various teachers and staff members that make up the Dawes community. However, if the superintendent board nominate and approve tonight's nominee, you'd be adding a principal but actively dismantling the distributed leadership that makes Dawes exemplary and leaving in its wake a gaping leadership void. Thank you.
Our next speaker is David Cutter.
Dear members of the school board and the administration, my name is David Cutter, and I am the parent of Nichols' 8th and 6th graders. I speak on behalf of myself and my wife, Julie Cutter, to address the overcrowding at Nichols. We understand that Nichols has experienced a 4-year enrollment increase of approximately 36%, more than 200 students. We further understand that Nichols has a total permissive transfer population of 59 students, or 2 large classrooms. As outlined in the letter that the administration and board received from parents, there are many issues of concern that stem from this increase. We will not repeat those issues here, except to note that of particular importance to us, the overstretched resources of Nichols likely have a disproportionate impact on students and families with the greatest needs. For example, an 8th grade parent whose child is eligible for free and reduced lunch told us that the child brings lunch to school because the lunch line is too long. Aside from a concerning increase in classroom size, additional social workers and psychologists have not been brought in to support the enrollment increase. These and other related issues likely further exacerbate the educational gaps in our community. We have no doubt you will agree that this situation is far from ideal. We also understand that enrollment predictions are just that, and as a result, even the best intentioned plans can be unexpectedly compromised. Some of the causes of the excessive enrollment at Nichols are, in our view, likely the result of significant structural issues. These include whether the school boundaries appropriately reflect changing population demographics, whether the magnet schools are serving their purpose, and whether new construction of facilities or the creation of new schools are necessary. We understand that these larger issues will take time to address. However, given the urgent situation, we believe that the district has no choice but to modify its permissive transfer policies. New permissive transfers to Nichols for the coming school year should not be allowed. Moreover, students with permissive transfers or who participate in magnet programs at the feeder schools should not automatically be enrolled at Nichols. We were surprised to learn that in the past, such students were required to reapply, but a parent who reapplied recently was told by the district that things eased up, so we reverted back to our original position. Things have not eased up, so this policy must be modified. We recognize that curtailing permissive transfers may be unpopular and may have an adverse impact on certain students. We also recognize that, as a family living in the Nichols district, it is easy for us to suggest a solution that will not impact our family. But while we are open to other approaches, we can think of no other solution that can be implemented immediately. Thank you for your time and consideration of our views, and we look forward to continuing to work with the district and the Nichols administration towards both short and long-term solutions to address the Nichols overcrowding.
Steve Jones.
Thanks for the time. Thank you for being here tonight and for all the work that you do. I don't have prepared remarks because if I did, I would have dug back through my hard drive from 9 years ago. I'm now a parent of 2 kids at Nichols. I was then a parent of 2 kids at Lincoln, and I'm having deja vu all over again. We went through the overcrowding thing there. We went through it in much the same way. I'm baffled that this wasn't foreseen. I know full well from the discussions we had at that time about how the projections are done, how difficult planning is, et cetera. But I'm now seeing a school, a middle school, that's undergoing the same kinds of pressures of enrollment, of resources, of physical plant, as I did 9 years ago. And I hope that in this situation, it doesn't take a full 2 to 3 years of coming to meetings, of lobbying, and discussing what the steps could be that could mitigate the kinds of impacts that overcrowding has on students and on their education. So I hope that at least something, if not projection and planning, has been learned from that process as it was 9 years ago, that could be applied to take care of this situation in the case of Nichols much more rapidly and much more effectively. Thank you.
Jennifer Lee.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Simpson Lee. I live at 911 Maple in Evanston, and I'm a current and a future Nichols Middle School parent. I want to speak also about the enrollment concerns at Nichols. I do so with the acknowledgement that the district faces many important issues, and also that school administrators need to be able to address multiple needs at the same time. I hope that the district can take some no-cost steps right away to alleviate the overcrowding, while also looking at longer-term and more systematic solutions. A group of parents have reviewed Nichols enrollment data, and we've shared some experiences of our children. We did so to talk about the 36% increase over the last 4 years, which significantly outpaces growth at the other middle schools. In addition to my 7th grader, I also have a 9-year-old at Washington. Her class of 3rd grade requires 5 sections, and her class size continues to grow every year. So this is not an issue that's going away anytime soon. My 7th grader has repeatedly told me that she's been pushed at school, and she's occasionally come home with bruises from being hit into her locker. This is incidental. This is just because the hallways are too crowded. A friend's daughter broke her arm below the elbow because she was accidentally pushed into a doorknob in the hallway. I went to a high school that was too crowded. I can compare this as the experience of walking out of a crowded sports event or a concert. It's not an environment that's safe or relaxing for anyone, but it's one that our students at Nichols experience with every passing period. My daughter spent her art rotation this year in a room with no sink because the art room needed to be divided in half over the summer to accommodate growth. When we experienced a family difficulty last year, my daughter sometimes stopped in the social worker's office because she needed a break. The social worker was rarely there, and this was not at all a lack of her responsiveness or her concern, but just of the ever-increasing number of students that the social worker needed to support. The sharp rise in enrollment at Nichols has touched all aspects of the day for all of our students. We really love Nichols. We understand why other parents want our children there, but these are public schools and we have public attendance areas. I understand that sometimes kids need a fresh start or a different school, but Nichols cannot continue to take on students without the physical space or the resources to do so. I ask that permissive transfers into 6th grade should not be made if Nichols is at enrollment capacity, and students that do require a mid-year transfer be provided options of one of the other district schools that serve middle school students. In the long term, I ask the district and the board to look at enrollment holistically as well, including reviewing attendance area boundaries, the effectiveness of magnet schools in retaining middle school students, and the need for a neighborhood school in the 5th Ward. Thank you.
Iman Williams.
Hi, my name is Iman Williams. I was a former District 65 student, now I go to ETHS, and I'm here to say that Ilhan Omar is a great and positive role model. More teachers need to include her and people like her in the curriculum, and there needs to be more Black people and other people of color represented in the curriculum. As a former District 65 student, I rarely saw myself and my people's struggles as a Black Muslim girl at school. We never had a slavery unit. When we talked about Black people, it was either a Rosa Parks picture book or something on MLK, who are phenomenal activists, who've done so much for the Black community, but Black history is deeper than a picture book. In 6th grade, my religion unit only had one slide on a PowerPoint, while other religions had a specific lesson plan that lasted days. Of course, it's great that other religions are learned about, but my religion should get more than one slide. District 65 needs to include Black and brown people in the curriculum. Thank you.
Maha Jarad.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here because I'm very upset that one of the District 65 teachers was recently bullied into stepping down as the co-chair of her school's cultural committee because she chose to feature Congresswoman Ilhan Omar on a Women's History Month bulletin board. Apparently, a small group of parents insisted that Ilhan Omar was anti-Semitic and then posted that claim on Facebook. This intimidation of our teachers must end, and I expect District 65 to really step up and deal with this problem. Islamophobia, the hatred and fear of Muslims and Islam is real in this country. We live with it every day. Institutional racism against African Americans and the demonization and isolation of people of Mexican, Hispanic, and Arab descent and people of color is also real. So you can imagine when we saw Ilhan Omar elected to Congress, many of us were ecstatic. She was such a shining example and a role model for all our students and people from all communities of what it means to stand for justice and fairness and equality. The charge that Ilhan Omar is anti-Semitic is outrageous. This accusation has been used in this country for decades to stifle criticism of Israel, a state which receives over $10 million a day, while 40 million Americans live below the poverty level, 33 million Americans still don't have health coverage, and another 1 trillion owe in student loan debt. Representative Omar sits on the House Foreign Relations Committee, which is generally responsible for overseeing the funding of the foreign aid program. And again, Israel is the highest recipient of U.S. aid. So yes, she should do her job. She should ask those questions, and she should be critical. More of our elected officials need to do the same, actually. Instead of blindly supporting a government whose gross human rights violations have been described as war crimes by many Israelis, Palestinians, and international human rights leaders and organizations. Ilhan Omar has spoken up on many issues of injustice, and more of our teachers need to feel safe and confident to include her and others when they're teaching about American leaders, government, and culture. And I hope that District 65 will find a way to encourage this. Thank you.
Lynn Pollock.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lynn Pollock, and I am a former, I'm still a parent, but I have no children currently in District 65 or District 202. But I'm a longtime resident. My children attended District 65 and 202 from kindergarten through high school graduation, and I'm appreciative of the welcoming and diverse community that we found here. And I was delighted to learn that Representative Ilhan Omar was recently included in a District 65 Women's Month display highlighting many amazing role models. She is, after all, the first Muslim woman of color to serve in Congress. And as a naturalized citizen and hijab-wearing woman, she is surely a sorely needed role model for the children of Evanston. I was dismayed then to learn that Omar's inclusion in this display was challenged as too controversial,
no doubt alluding to her criticisms of Israel and the pro-Israel lobbying organization AIPAC. How audacious of Omar to suggest that this lobbying organization does in fact influence politicians and policy. How audacious of her to suggest the emperor is not wearing any clothes. As one of thousands of American Jews who support Representative Omar's right to speak common sense truth, I am appalled that her comments were so quickly labeled anti-Semitic. Criticizing the state of Israel or the lobbying organizations that support it is not anti-Semitic. Supporting Palestinian rights is not anti-Semitic. Many in this country unwittingly fall into the trap of being distracted from the truth by language they find insensitive. Beware, though, that the trap has been set by those wishing to stifle discussion about situations that may be difficult to face. In this case, that Palestinians face extreme danger to their lives and futures while living under Israeli control. So in response to those who claim that Omar's language is not sensitive enough to the nuances of anti-Semitic tropes, I would reiterate that while her words might be perceived as hurtful, Palestinians are actually physically and brutally harmed every day by Israeli forces. Bravo to the District 65 teachers who introduce our children to the truth tellers of our time.
Lori Haverkamp.
Hi, I'm Lori Haverkamp. I'm one of Dawes's co-presidents. I just want to read a portion of the statement from the 153 Dawes parents that Tabitha mentioned that we sent to the district. I'm going to try to get through it quickly. Okay. Dawes is currently searching for its 5th principal in 5 years. Through the past 14 months, District 65 administration has been aware of the need for another principal search. We appreciate district efforts to both, number one, provide principal candidates that meet the needs that Dawes teaching staff have identified, and number two, include both parents and the teaching staff in the process. Despite these efforts, many parents in the Dawes community wish to speak up to support a statement made by the majority of the Dawes teachers. As parents, we strongly support the teacher's position. In past months, Dawes teaching staff created a profile of what qualities an ideal candidate would have and communicated these qualities to district administration. They specifically requested bilingual candidates, yet were only provided 2 candidates who spoke Spanish. They asked for candidates who are familiar with self-contained special education classrooms, TWE, and ESL programs, which we have all of those at Dawes. Yet again, only 2 of the candidates had experience with ELL and bilingual education, and only 1 spoke about experience with special education classrooms. The teacher specifically requested someone familiar with high-need environments. Some of the candidates were not able to discuss approaches to trauma-informed instruction, and one candidate even made an inappropriate joke about running from a difficult and traumatic situation. The teachers also asked for the candidate to have a primary school background and a strong commitment to the community, but 2 of 4 candidates had little primary school background and evidence of frequent moves. Additionally, 3 of the candidates were unwilling to state a time commitment to Dawes when directly asked about their timeline for working with the Dawes community. Furthermore, after the forum, we were alerted of substantiated allegations of previous professional misconduct levied against one of the candidates and significant administrative failings by a second. We are also aware that this information has been made known to district administration. After repeated requests for information to the district, we are uncertain if the district has sufficiently taken these concerns into considerations. It is our position that these different concerns disqualify 2 of the individuals as viable candidates for our school. Over the past 5 years, the frequent transitions in leadership has led to inconsistent support of the teachers and students and a distraction from effectively addressing the needs of the student body. It is time that Dawes Elementary School be given the resources and leadership that the school needs to provide a safe, welcoming, and enriching environment for all of the students that it serves. We are fully aware that the principal hiring decision is solely made by Superintendent Gorin, and while we appreciate that Dr. Gorin has given parents an opportunity to listen to the candidates, we also expect he seriously consider the views of the Dawes community in this decision-making process. Thank you.
Carmen Lilly.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Carmen Lilly y yo tengo 2 hijos en la escuela de DAS. Y lo voy a decir en inglés después. Pero primero quiero decir que después de peticiones repetidas de información al distrito, somos inseguros si el distrito ha tomado suficientemente nuestras preocupaciones de los candidatos en consideración. Es nuestra posición que estas diferentes preocupaciones descalifican a 2 personas como candidatos viables para nuestra directora de escuela. Como madre, apoyo firmemente la posición de los maestros que el candidato más adecuado a las necesidades de DAS fue Doris Negrón, y ella debe ser validada contra un grupo similar de calificados candidatos. Estoy aquí para pedirles que intercedan en la selección del nuevo principal de la escuela primaria DAS y que no dejen que el superintendente Gorin nombre un candidato que no tiene las cualificaciones necesarias para el bienestar de los estudiantes y maestros de DAS. So, good evening, my name is Carmen Lilly. I have 2 children at DAS Elementary. After repeated requests for information to the district, we are uncertain whether the district has sufficiently taken into account the concerns we have about the candidates under consideration. It is our position that these different concerns disqualify 2 people as viable candidates for our school principal. As a mother, I strongly support the position of the teachers that the most suitable candidate for the needs of DAS was Doris Negron, and she must be validated against a similar group of qualified candidates. I'm here to ask you to intercede in the selection of the new principal of DAS Elementary School and not let Superintendent Gorin appoint a candidate who does not have the necessary qualifications for the well-being of DAS students and teachers.
Yo soy Sara Carrillo, tengo un hijo en 3er grado en DAS, que cada año que ha estado allí ha tenido un director diferente y cree que eso es normal porque es lo único que conoce. En los últimos meses, personal educativo de DAS ha creado un perfil de qué cualidades tendría un candidato ideal y comunicaron estas cualidades a la administración del distrito. Pidieron candidatos que son familiarizados con clases de educación especial, TWI y programas de ESL o inglés como segundo idioma. Con experiencia trabajando con niños y familias de diversos orígenes culturales y idiomas, incluyendo familias de inmigrantes y refugiados. Candidatos con entrenamiento en las prácticas restaurativas, resolver problemas y en construir relaciones. Candidatos capaces de comunicarse eficazmente con las familias. Candidatos con experiencia de la escuela primaria y con fuerte dedicación a la comunidad de DAS. Apoyamos firmemente esta lista de cualidades de los maestros. Okay, so I am Sarah Carrillo, and I have a 3rd grader, TWI at DAS, who believes that he's going to get a different principal next year because that's all he's known, is a different principal each year. And I hope to have a kindergartner at TWI at DAS next year. So in recent months, DAS teaching staff created a profile of what qualities an ideal candidate would have and communicated these qualities to the district administration. They requested candidates who are familiar with special education classes, TWI, and ESL programs, with experience working with children and families from diverse cultural backgrounds and languages, including immigrant families and refugees. Candidates with training on restorative practices to process, solve problems, and build relationships. Candidates able to communicate effectively with families. Candidates with early and primary school experience and a strong dedication to the DAS community. We strongly support this list of the teachers' qualities.
Shannon Lang.
Hello, my name is Shannon Lang. I'm one of the Dawes PTA co-presidents. I am the mother of Francesca, 3rd grade at Twee at Dawes, and Marlo in 7th grade at Chute. I would like to know, why is the District 65 principal search process so blanketed in secrecy? Why is it that Dawes teachers' requests for what they wanted in a principal candidate were not included in the job posting? Why is it that parents invited to the public forum were not provided with resumes of the candidates? Why is it that parents and teachers in the private interview room were provided with candidates' resumes minutes prior to the actual interviews? Why is it that parents and teachers in the private interview room were given incomplete applications and 3-year-old references on some candidates? Why is it when that a parent from the public forum, me, in between candidates, ran into a parent, Tabitha, from the private interview room as we were going to the restroom, that we were chastised by district administration and told we were not allowed to speak to each other about the candidates? Why is it that district administration gave teachers a total of 15 minutes to address their concerns about the candidates after the forum, and were basically told that the administration knows best what is for Dawes, not its teachers? Why is it that no one from the school board attends the public and/or private forums of the principal candidates? Why is it that you are not provided with resumes or meet the candidates? I wonder, how can you make an informed decision when you have absolutely no information on which to base that decision? Is the school board really okay blindly accepting the district's recommendations of a candidate, despite concerns of both parents and teachers? Something needs to change. This process is flawed on so many levels. The Dawes community and all students in District 65 going through this process deserve respect, transparency, and to feel that their collective voice is being heard in the search for its next principal. Dawes is an amazing community and welcoming community, and we look forward working with the district and with our principal to ensure that our Dawes teachers and students get the support that they need for an equitable education for all of our students. Thank you.
Our final speaker this evening, and I apologize that I'm going to probably mispronounce, Marilee Aguirre? Aguirre?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, well, thank you. Thank you to all the speakers. We will move on. Lindsay, you've got the...
I move that the Board of Education accept the recommendations outlined in the attached group motion and approve the personnel appointments, leaves, and separations, March 2019 Board of Education meeting minutes, February 2017 destruction of closed session audio recording, February 2019 list of bills, treasurer's reports, and budget amendment.
Second.
Hilburn,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Abstain.
Chow,
Yes.
Tanya Vudi,
With some reservations, yes.
Cohen? Yes. Cartha?
Yes.
So if I may, with that vote, the board has approved the nomination of the new principal at Dawes, and I want to introduce her to you this evening, Marlene Aponte Matthews. She's got lots of experience as a bilingual teacher, as an instructional coach for teachers, working in areas to foster academic growth. Over 17 years of experience as a bilingual teacher, a reading and math interventionist, a resident principal. She was recently a director of instructional coaching for the Academy on Urban School Leadership. She has a BA and a master's earned in New York and is a PhD candidate at the University of Illinois, Chicago. She is committed to working with staff and parents and being present even before the end of the school year. And so it's with pleasure that I introduce Marlene to say a few words to the community.
Good evening. Again, let me begin by saying that I am in awe of the strength in the community that I've had the privilege of experiencing during this process. It is clear to me that everyone from parents, teachers, district leaders are deeply committed to the success of students at Dawes. This is one of the most important reasons why I am deeply honored, incredibly honored to join this community, for I believe there is strength in unity and shared purpose. I'm really excited to get to know all of you. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty or questions you have. During this transition, I will be attending your festival this weekend. I will also be visiting Dawes prior to the end of the school year because I'm really passionate about building relationships and getting to know your students, the staff, and the parents as we move forward together. Permítanme, por favor, de decir que estoy bien asombrada de la comunidad y el tener el privilegio de conocer esta comunidad durante este proceso. Para mí está muy claro que los padres, maestros y los líderes del distrito están muy dedicados al éxito de los estudiantes de Dawes. Es una de las razones más importantes para mí que me siento increíblemente honrada de unirme con esta comunidad. Y por esa razón también estoy muy emocionada de conocerlos a todos. Asistiré al festival este sábado y aparte de eso también regresaré antes de que se finalice el año escolar para seguir conociendo a sus estudiantes, los maestros y los padres de la comunidad. Muchas gracias por esta oportunidad. I want to thank again the board and the community for their involvement in this process. I look forward to getting started with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace, you have the motion on the resolution?
Sorry. I move that the Board of Education adopt the resolution declaring the intention to issue $5.5 million in working cash fund bonds for the purpose, of increasing the district's working cash fund and directing that notice of such intention be published in the manner provided by law.
Second.
Very legal words.
Do we have any?
Raphael, is there a precedent?
Oh.
And I see
Yes.
that.
And we have Liz Hennessy here from Raymond James to provide a presentation about the refunding proposal.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Elizabeth, can you speak directly into the microphone, please?
You bet. Raphael's passing out the presentation, so I'll wait just a minute. While he's doing it, the motion is for the issuance of up to $5.5 million of working cash bonds, and the new money is going to be paid from the debt service extension base, primarily with savings from bonds that would be refunded this fall. So this is the first step in the authorization process to go forward with the issuance of these bonds. Raphael passed out a presentation, and I'd just like to take you through it briefly, quickly, because I know you've got a long agenda tonight. Starting in Section 1, we have an update of the bond market, and the good news is interest rates are low, and they've come down by almost 50 basis points in the last few months. Page 4 shows a 5-year history of interest rates for municipal bonds, and page 5 is the 1-year, and you can see over the last few months how rates have come down. Moving to Section 2, page 7, this is a chart that describes the district's currently outstanding principal and interest payments on bonds. So starting on the left-hand side of the page, we have the current equalized assessed valuation. We have increases set at 0 in order to be ultra-conservative. We have the district's debt service extension base, which is currently $5,811,581. So this amount is what is available to pay back the principal and interest on existing bonds. Going forward, we've assumed that CPI is 1.5%, again, a conservative estimate, to show the increases in the debt base in the future. Moving to the right, we see the non-referendum current debt service. So these are the bond principal and interest payments currently payable from the district on its outstanding bonds. And then the tax rate, part of the debt service, part of your overall tax rate. Page 8 is a view of the outstanding bonds and the limit formed by that debt service extension base with the blue line. As you can see, there's very small space under that blue line for the issuance of additional bonds. However, you do have the opportunity to refund some bonds for savings, which will allow the issuance of the $5.5 million. Page 9 looks at the district's debt limit, which is very large, currently $129 million. Page 10 looks at its working cash bond limit, which is $79 million. And the bonds that we're talking about tonight, that $5.5 million, are working cash bonds. Page 11 is basically a repeat of the outstanding debt service. Let's go to page 12. This looks at the three types of bonds that can be paid from that debt service extension base: working cash, life safety, and funding bonds. But working cash bonds are the most flexible. They can be used for many different repairs, not only health, life safety repairs. So it fits well into the district's capital plan for next summer, not this summer, but next summer. So the bonds, the 2011 A bonds are eligible to be refunded. And if we go to page 13 and look at the proposed 2019 refunding, you can see that we're able to refund those 2011 A bonds and generate savings of about $1.2 million net present value savings. We can also at the same time issue up to, right now at today's interest rates, about $5.4 million of the working cash bonds. So the authorization tonight should be looked at as a maximum limit. We can issue anything less, but we can't issue anything more than the $5.5 million. That's why we put that number in there as a bit more aspirational. The other thing to know is that in the debt service fund, there's about $3 million. It's excess accumulated loss and collection. That's an amount that the county clerk extends over your regular debt service payment to make sure that after taxes are collected, there's enough money to in fact pay all of the principal and interest on the bonds. So over the years, that's accumulated to this $3 million. And that's going to be used to help fund this $5.5 million as well. As we go forward, and other bonds are callable, the district will have the opportunity to do the same kind of thing again. So even though no bonds are being considered yet for 2023 or 2024, we did put together an outline of a schedule with a cushion for interest rates to show that refundings in the future will allow the district to gain access to additional proceeds. In 2023, based on current interest rates, again with a cushion of at least 75 basis points, we've got $3.5 million, and then in 2024, just under $2 million. So altogether, through 2024, the district could access up to 10 million, just under 11 million of bond proceeds for working cash to put into your capital projects while not really extending its current debt service beyond the outline of these refunded bonds. So just wanted to show you those future issues to let you know we could possibly do this again. But on this particular issue, the bond payoff is even shorter than the bonds we're refunding. It's only 9 years. Page 14, just as a graphic of the three bonds, so you can see by refunding, we've made room under that blue line and are able to fill in with additional bonds. So with that, we're at our financing schedule, and where we started was the resolution of intent that the district board is considering tonight. That will be published in the local newspaper next week, as it turns out, given the publication deadlines, and we'll start a 30-day petition period. If within that time frame, 10% of the registered voters were to submit a petition to the district, the $5.5 million issue would need to be voted on at referendum. Also, we're looking at holding a public hearing on these bonds per the law on May 20th. That's your next public meeting. And then coming back to the board in August of 2019 for the bond resolution consideration. And will authorize the sale of the $5.5 million along with the refunding bonds. And we're doing this in the fall because that's when those 2011 A bonds are callable. We can't call them prior to 90 days before the call date on a tax-exempt basis. So that's the basic timing. The money should be in the district's treasury by October 21st, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any?
Can I just do 2 points of clarification, if you would? By doing the action that we've proposed, I guess this is a question. I believe that this is not going to extend our debt beyond what it's already extended.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
so that's correct. And then the second question is that these resources that we are leveraging appropriately can only be used for capital projects and not for other expenditures.
They actually can only be used to pay debt service, but because we're issuing new bonds, that $3 million will go towards paying them. That's correct. The bond proceeds may only be used for capital projects because they're issued on a tax-exempt basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One question. On page 14, can you tell us if there's any other, so the line, and thank you for this graph, I think it's very helpful in understanding kind of where we were on our debt service extension base and why we were maxed out and what these additional incremental monies could be. Are there any factors that would push the debt service line up?
Over the line?
No, that would move the line. Do we
Gotcha.
have any control over moving the line in terms of increasing the debt service extension base?
Good question. The only way to do it is via referendum. You could ask the voters to increase the debt service extension base.
So, I mean, clearly that this, having 10 million over the course of X number of years, 2024 is more than zero, which was what we thought of before, so thank you. But relative to $105 million outstanding capital expenditures, that's, so I'm just wondering if there was anything short of that that could move that line higher, but thank you.
Unfortunately, no. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Is this the type of information in advance of a hearing that we would make available to people via our website on the finance tab?
Yes, it will be. This presentation will actually be published in the morning on the district website.
Great.
With a link. Yes.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
May I do one thing? And with many thanks to Elizabeth, who's wonderful to work with, I want to recognize Rafael Bafemi, leadership on thinking about creative ways to leveraging our resources so that we can chop away at some of the challenges that we have. So to Rafael and to Elizabeth, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So can we go ahead and take the vote on that, please?
Hilpern,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Chow,
Yes.
Tanyavudi,
Yes.
Cohen. Yes. Cartha.
Yes. And with that, we'll move on to our discussion item, the Early Childhood Strategic Plan and Update.
We got to turn.
Ready to talk early childhood? Okay. Got to figure out how to turn, oh, somebody did it.
We got to turn that one on too.
Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful.
As
Okay.
Sharon comes to the podium, and we'll work on turning on the other television set. It's a.
Okay. We have all the tech going? Not quite? Okay.
So as Sharon starts, I just want to underscore what some of the public comments were and the importance of this work. And this work really came out of the task force on early childhood education, where we made a commitment to come back with a strategic plan and with next steps and with very specific goals and outcomes to move forward. So I just want to thank Sharon and her team working closely with Stacy and Joyce as we have been working on what is going to be presented right now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to finally be here presenting this strategic plan. It's been about 10 months since I stood before you and was brought on to be the principal at JEH, and this is this strategic plan is the result of a lot of concerted effort on the part of everyone in the community, and I want to particularly thank my teachers and staff, some of who are here tonight, for all of their hard work and dedication going through the data, helping me sort through and learn my way around JH and coming together to develop this plan. So I'm just going to jump right in. We call our plan Equity and Opportunity, Preparing Our Children for Kindergarten and the World Beyond. And we'll start with this quote. When challenging work is coupled with high expectations and high levels of support, and when students are actively working and cognitively, socially, and emotionally engaged, this produces greater motivation, stronger identity development, and deeper learning. That's from the National Commission on Social, Emotional, and Academic Development. And we chose to start with that quote because it speaks to the bond between social, emotional learning and academic performance. So, headlines. JEH operates a comprehensive program for at-risk and special needs students. Our grants use the term at-risk to describe a student who requires temporary or ongoing interventions to succeed academically. In order to better meet the needs of our students and improve K readiness outcomes, our community has engaged in a rigorous process of strategic planning to guide our program development. Through this process, we have identified 6 goals and strategies to improve our ability to meet our student needs and improve student outcomes. Well, I seem to love this slide. Did I turn it off? No.
You may have.
Click on the slide again.
Click on the laptop.
Go down.
There you go. All right, we're back on track. We'll just use this. Okay, as I said, we have 6 goals rooted in research, informed by data. I'm going to just go through the 6 goals briefly, and then I will come back to each of them individually for more details. Goal number 1, ensure JEH Center is well organized for continuous improvement. Create a culture, goal number 2, create a culture in which teaching and learning is driven by diversity, equity, and inclusion. Goal number 3, create a climate in which students' social, emotional, developmental needs are addressed and supported. Goal number 4, ensure that all children are individually prepared for kindergarten. Goal number 5, strengthen family and community partnerships to support learning opportunities. And 6, align resources with goals to ensure student success. We believe that once we have implemented this plan, what you will see at the school, this is our vision for the school, what it will look like. We will see students engaging in intentionally curated tasks and activities, providing them with opportunities to develop skills that will prepare them for kindergarten and beyond. These tasks and activities will provide opportunities for integrated learning, such as block building, to develop math and spatial awareness, as well as social emotional skills and persistence and collaboration, or dramatic play activities to develop social, emotional, and language skills. We will see teachers guiding learning by curated activities, modeling expected behaviors, engaging in self-talk, narrating student actions, giving feedback, asking probing questions that help students to focus on learning objectives. We will see teachers and staff collaboratively engaged in data analysis to inform instructional practices and in curricular unit studies to improve cultural responsiveness of these units and to understand levels of rigor as they relate to development. We will see a vibrant and engaged parent body with parents and families as partners in their child's education and parents and families providing community for one another. The process, this is speaking to the process, but I spoke to it already in that it's informed by our data and research, but I wanted to speak to the process that we did receive feedback from our stakeholders. So I worked with the teams at the school all year, and then we've had a series of feedback rounds this winter from stakeholders, educators, families, and the community at large, and along with district-level data, as I said before, informed the development of each of these goals. I think most people know this, but I'll go through this quickly. The JEH Center for Early Childhood Education offers educational programming for at-risk students aged 0 to 5. JEH operates 5 programs out of 2 centers. First, the Family Center, which houses our 0 to 3 programs, Early Head Start and home visiting programs. The Early Childhood Center, which houses our age 3 to 5 programs, Head Start, Preschool for All, and Special Education. All programs are publicly funded through local dollars and federal or state grants. Our current demographics of the school are 39% Latinx, 30% African American, 18% white, 6% multiracial, and 7% Asian. All students, as I said before, must demonstrate risk factors for future academic success, and 74% of our students are eligible for free or reduced lunch. The District 65 kindergarten reading readiness data, which has fed into a lot of the interests in this development of this plan, showed that our students have been demonstrating reading readiness at an average rate of 37% over the past 3 years. And this indicates an urgent need for a strategic plan to improve student outcomes. Our 5 essential data, which it gives information about how well the school is organized for continuous improvement. For the 2018 school year, JEH was rated as partially organized for improvement. Schools that are at or above this benchmark in 3 or more of the essentials and rated as well organized, research shows are 10 times more likely to improve than schools that are below those benchmarks. Before I go into the goals, I just thought I'd stop for a second to talk a little bit about what kindergarten readiness is. This is an ongoing debate throughout the country, and it's in development. Evanston Cradles to Careers and District 65 worked very hard on the Strong Start to Kindergarten Guide, but it's very long, too long to go into here. So I found this, we found this quote from the Illinois School Readiness Initiative that I thought kind of sums it up nicely. A school-ready child is one who arrives with strong early language and literacy skills, such as the ability to rhyme, to engage in back-and-forth communication, or to respond to simple requests, such as, please pick up the crayons. Prepared means possessing early math skills, such as the ability to sort beads by color, or to use words to describe the weight or size of a pumpkin. But beyond cognitive abilities, readiness also includes physical, social, and emotional well-being. A prepared child exhibits curiosity about the world around him and begins to wait turns most of the time. Okay, goal number 1. Ensure JEH Center is well organized for continuous improvement. So this is some of the data that we use to inform this goal. It is available in the full strategic plan, so I'm not going to go through it right now. If you want to dig deeper, it is in the plan. And I'm just going to click through some of the research that we use to inform this goal as well. I'll stop here to highlight a few of the strategies. Again, all of this is available in this full strategic plan, along with timelines about how we plan to roll it out. But just some of the strategies I'd like to highlight are: build and maintain strong and effective leadership systems. intentional team building to improve staff-to-staff trust, and creating systems to support a culture of collaboration, including common planning time, common projects across programs such as curricular unit study, etc. And these areas I wanted to highlight because these were some of the areas where we scored the weakest on the 5 essentials, and we are very focused on trying to turn this around. We are going to evaluate for success. We'll use the 5 essentials survey, and we will intend to see the school well organized in the 3 areas measured for pre-K in the 5 Es by the end of this 3-year period. And along the way, we will also use internal surveys that we'll develop just to keep track, keep an eye between the 5 Es. All right, goal 2, create a culture in which teaching and learning is driven by diversity, equity, and inclusion. The data here is data that we've all seen before. It speaks to the achievement gap, which people have gone into earlier this evening and before, and is well represented in our task force report. So again, this is available in the strategic plan to look at. This is some of the research that we looked at to inform the goal. We're going to be doing more work with the work of Zaretta Hammond next year. And strategies that I want to highlight here are enhanced professional development of anti-bias teaching practices, complete curricular study of the creative curriculum units. So creative curriculum is the curriculum that we use at JEH. It is written into our grants and therefore mandated for us to use. We're going to go back into that and do deeper study and analyze the units with a lens for culturally responsive pedagogy and anti-bias tenets, and supplement the units as needed to improve cultural relevance, responsiveness, and rigor. Prioritizing hiring teachers and other employees of color to further diversify our workforce so our students and families see themselves reflected in their learning leaders. Consciously work to present counter-narratives to the historically white-dominated narratives of academic, professional, and leadership success. We'll monitor for success. We'll be doing this in many ways, but primarily through TS Gold assessment outcomes disaggregated for race and ethnicity, and also we're going to be looking for positive kids data as it comes in next year and watching that over the years that follow, and improved ISIL kindergarten data disaggregated for race and ethnicity. Okay, goal number 3, create a climate in which students' social, emotional, developmental needs are addressed and supported. Again, data supporting the goal and research. I'm not going to dwell on that because it's getting late. Strategies I want to emphasize. Teach children to acknowledge and express their emotions in school-appropriate ways. Provide trauma-informed classrooms through the implementation of the pyramid model for social-emotional supports, including research-based programs such as Conscious Discipline and Second Step. Enhance restorative practices and train staff to model language and behaviors to promote and encourage responsibility, reconciliation, and restitution, which are the 3 R's of restorative practice. We will evaluate for success. We want to maintain 80% of our students meeting widely held expectations on the TS Gold social-emotional areas of the assessment. Goal number 4. Ensure that all children are individually prepared for kindergarten. Again, this is some of the data that I spoke to briefly before and others have spoken to. I wanted to pause on this a little. It was actually brought up earlier. These graphs tell the story a little bit, tell the story of why this is important, why it's important to be kindergarten ready, particularly in the area of literacy. So the upper left-hand graph shows students disaggregated for race, black and white, who arrive in kindergarten ready, and what their trajectory is over the next 4 years in elementary school, ending in 3rd grade. So you can see from the bars that there is no real difference. Both black and white students perform very well if they arrive in kindergarten ready. They're able to maintain. The story is a little bit different when the students do arrive not ready by the ISO measures for reading readiness. And here we see, again, the dark blue band is our black students, the gray band are white students. Our black students are only able to recover by the end of kindergarten with 57% of students meeting the targets, the grade level targets. White students are recovering a little bit better, those who arrive not ready. But the story really changes by the end of third grade, where 81% of white students have achieved grade level targets, and only 52% of black students are achieving those targets. And this speaks to the gap that we have seen. And what we know, what research has told us, is that when we're not reading on grade level by third grade, the chances of recovery are that much harder. Oh, sorry. And I wanted to, these two graphs also are broken out to show Latinx students versus all others. The story there is similar. Is that a timer?
No.
Okay. Because I got a little bit more to do. So, but again, you can see that students who arrive ready are faring much better than those who are not arriving ready. So that speaks to the importance and why we need to pay attention. Okay, so this is the data, the research, we'll go through that. Some of the strategies. Develop a culture of data-driven instruction and high expectations for every student. Support staff through additional training in foundations of early literacy and numeracy instruction through purposeful play and intentionally curated play activities. And I just want to pause on that phrase because it's very important to our staff and the way we teach. Play is the way we do school. Young children learn best through play. So just because I am indicating that we're going to have a focus on pre-academics and making sure that our students are arriving kindergarten ready, we're going to do that through play and intentionally curated play activities because we know that is how our students learn what best. If they just think they're having fun, that's how they're going to learn, and we'll make sure that happens. Complete curricular study, as I said before, of the creative curriculum project-based learning units, analyze for depth of pre-academic instruction, and supplement the units as needed to improve foundational academic outcomes. We're going to evaluate for success. Bless you. We'll be using TS Gold, literacy and math data, the kids kindergarten readiness data assessment, and then we are going to continue to look at District 65 reading readiness data. Based on that original baseline of 37% of our students arriving ready, we're going to work hard to experience 125% growth from that baseline data, so that by the end of 2020, or by 2020 as kids enter kindergarten, 50% will be K-ready. By 2021, we'll have experienced 175% growth with 65% of our students K-ready. And by 2022, we will have experienced 200% growth with 74% of our kids K-ready. If we can do this, we will be on track for within 5 years having 80% of our students arriving in kindergarten ready, and thereby hopefully starting to close that gap. This is being a little stuck, but there it is. Okay. Goal 5, strengthen family and community partnerships to support learning opportunities. Again, some of the data I spoke to before, wanting to make sure that we're increasing the amount of involved families. Research supporting the goal. Strategies, maintain and support the positions of family engagement specialists, father and male involvement specialists, and the family support personnel at both the Family Center and the Early Childhood Center. Include parents in decision-making around school priorities and offerings for family engagement. Increase opportunities for family volunteerism. Strive to remove barriers that limit family involvement, and parents gave a lot of good ideas about this, like rotating times for family meetings, video streaming of family meetings, and perhaps providing transportation to and from school family events. And then we're going to, again, evaluate for success. Primarily, we'll be using the 5 essentials. and looking at family attendance at school events and involvement with school governance and volunteerism. Goal number 6, align resources with goals to ensure student success. So this page of data speaks a lot to our multi-tiered systems of support in the school. As I said earlier, this is an at-risk school, so it's different than a typical District 65 school. And because of that, we have a lot of responsibilities to support our students through multi-tiered systems of support. But in addition, JEH is also responsible for all special education needs for students in District 65 age 3 through 5. So even above and beyond the students who are enrolled in the school, we are responsible to meet the district's legal responsibilities to approximately 1,800 students district-wide. And JEH is currently resourced to support our enrolled population of about 425 at-risk students. So we have a little struggle there with resourcing that we're trying to work on, that are particularly the people who are involved in special education evaluations and child find screenings, which we are obliged to do, and are also our social workers and our psychologists, our mental health support for the school. And so they're stretched very thin and often are not available to work with the students. And we're going to work to improve that. Leadership, we did a workflow analysis and we're a little thin. Not so much, that's not as bad in the Family Center, but in the ECC, we need a little bit more support if we're really going to do the instructional leadership we need to be doing. So, strategies. Realign fiscal resources and budget to better support the areas of need. Increase human resources within the building to support MTSS implementation. And restructuring of the administrative team to better support instructional leadership and professional development in addition to the operational needs of the center. We're going to evaluate for success by having that improved 5 essentials data and improved TS Gold and kindergarten readiness scores. So bottom line, our students are going to tell us if we have achieved our plan, achieved our goals. In closing, equity and opportunity, preparing our children for kindergarten and the world beyond is intended to be a strategic plan that will guide our major decisions and actions and shape our assessment of emerging opportunities over the next 3 years. The JEH community invested significant collective effort in the planning process, and now that the administration has approved the plan, the truly challenging work of implementation can begin. To support that work, we will move quickly to action and will share our progress annually with the greater District 65 community. Final note, we really see this as a roadmap to improve students' futures, not a set of prescriptive steps, and we will revisit the plan regularly and will not hesitate to adapt it in response to new data and changing circumstances at the center. In the spirit in which by which the process was created, any conversations about revising that plan will be developed with stakeholder knowledge and input so that we are always moving forward with a shared sense of mission, values, purpose, and goals. And that is my presentation. I'll leave the 6 goals up there. I now turn it over to you and the community for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Sharon. You can obviously see from the reactions that we have been waiting for some time for this kind of a report, and so we're very appreciative of the effort and information that you've shared. I'd like to turn it over to my board colleagues with any questions. Anya, would you like to start?
Thank you so much for the thorough accounting of what's happened, but also a thorough vision for moving ahead. The primary question that I have is I would like to hear more. In Goal 5, there was some mention of the 0 to 3 programs that we have in the Family Center, but I'm curious to hear more about how you perceive our 0 to 3 programs and work in those 0 to 3 programs impacting our ability to close the gap in opportunity to achieve?
Well, around goal 5 with family involvement or just in general with impact?
Overall, most of the measures, TS Gold and kids, are measures that don't directly go back to 0 to 3
Right.
resources.
Right.
So I'm just curious to hear more
So
about
what TS
specifically.
Gold does, TS Gold starts at 0 to 3, so that assessment is used throughout the center. They do have a birth to 3 part, sorry, getting tired, birth to 3 assessment, and it's used quite diligently, and we have, there's a director there, Lyris Bryant, who really helps guide the teachers to analyze the results, and I think actually she's doing a great job with that. I think you're right, it is critical that we're thinking all the way back to the beginning from birth, and the work that goes on at the Family Center is equally important and needs the attention. I just wasn't sure if you were speaking to family involvement or if you were talking about just the center in general. I think based on my first year here, there has been a stronger focus on work at the ECC rather than the Family Center, but I have tried very hard to be very involved with and make sure that there's members from the Family Center who on all the leadership teams, and that I am meeting regularly with the members of the family support advocates and meeting with Angela Johnson and Lyris Bryant to help support their program. In terms of family involvement, because you had started with goal 5, that we have family engagement specialists and lots of offerings there. We're always working to try to increase parent involvement, and part of the conversations I had with families while we were working on this plan was how difficult it is sometimes for them to actually be here. And I think for families in the Family Center, it can be particularly difficult because their children are so young, and they they pick them up at 5:30, and to stay and come back to be involved in after hours events is challenging, but not impossible. It works a little bit better for the home visiting program because the families can come during the day. But we're working on trying to find ways to allow families to be more involved in their children's education. Did I answer your question?
In some ways, I think, so there's so much research, and I've talked a lot about Richard Rothstein's book about the Black-White Achievement Gap, and he highlights significantly the role of early childhood, starting from birth, and the role that plays in addressing the gaps in opportunity to achieve. So the fact that we have a 0 to 3 program, and we also have one of the most significant achievement gaps in the country, I think begs the question of, well, how are we using our 0 to 3 program to address the critical need to close this opportunity gap?
So I think what you'll see in the years going forward is that the Family Center is also going to be involved in this unit study. They also use the creative curriculum. So we're going to make sure that they are having the opportunity to also dive deep into their curriculum and analyze it and understand more deeply the rigor involved and how specifically giving them supports, which they're already getting. Katrina Jones has created some really wonderful workshops for them this year around academic instruction. I hate calling it academic because it doesn't feel like it when they're little, but it's play, but it's early numeracy and early literacy. And how we're talking to children, and how we're developing language, and how we're developing social emotional skills in the classroom. That is ongoing professional development for the teachers, and they have opportunities monthly to talk and reflect on how the students are doing. And I am being as mindful as I can to try to make sure that they are included. The barriers we face between the two centers, really fully bringing them together, is very different schedules. and their professional development schedules are also different. So we're not always able to have them together for this, but we're trying to make sure that we're collaborating and talking to each other. And this year, I would say, very formative. Next year, I hope for it to be better and more cohesive. Okay.
Thank you. I think I'm also wondering about parents, like how are we closing that opportunity gap with how we're engaging with, or educating or listening to or integrating parents into the opportunities that we have available.
So, I mean, as I said before, there's a full menu that we have a lot of programming around social emotional learning for the students, reading with your talk, read, sing, and we bring in a lot of musical events for the parents so that they can learn to sing and talk with the students and how important that is for language development. There's library lending library that sends books home for the students in the 0 to 3 program to have books at home. And we are going to be, as I said, just doing more and more of that. I think that maybe what you're speaking to is how do we get more parents involved? Is that?
Well, I'll disclose, 3 of my children have participated in the Family Center Home Visit Program. And I think as a parent who has had the opportunity to be home with my children in Evanston, I see much of what would be called opportunity hoarding that starts at a very early age, with the opportunity for parents to exchange information about resources and connections that will support child development, that will support opportunities to make sure that children are on track, right? And those are opportunities that may not always be accessible because of social or economic barriers in our community. So I'm wondering how our 0 to 3 program helps to remove some of those barriers, or how it gives entree to parents who are not able to stay at home and engage in all of these other social exchanges or economic exchanges that provide opportunities for their children. How do we close that gap with our services and our programs?
Well, I think that, well, you've been part of the home visiting program, so I think you can speak to that. But in terms of the Early Head Start program, where the students come to the center, the classrooms themselves are very enriched for the students, and I think provide a lot of opportunities for the students that they might not be, the parents may not be able to present at home, and the parents are really working hard. And don't always have that opportunity to focus on it. So I think just the fact that they're here in this wonderfully enriched program is helpful there. In terms of helping the families overall, we do have the family support advocates at the Family Center who are in contact with the families regularly, trying to make sure that they provide supports for them. We have a partnership with Cradles to Crayons and other programs that provide clothing and supports for families as they need it. We are continually, as I said, inviting families in for all sorts of events here, and do everything we can to try to encourage them to come, and we are going to continue to work to break down barriers. And as I've spoken to families at family events, I am always encouraging them to please extend a hand and try to invite parents to come in and explain to them how important it is. I think one of the most important things about it is creating a sense of community for the families so that they can support one another. And the more families that come out, the more they have that opportunity.
So I think some things that, I don't know if it's been thought about and talked about, but having a targeted outreach for the populations that we know may be primed to be impacted by an opportunity gap in District 65, and having a thoughtful process around engaging those families early. Also letting folks know about the opportunity gap and how critical it is to access and pursue and receive opportunities early in order to address what we have as a social ill in our institution that we're trying to address. I think I'd be curious to hear about what's a vision around that kind of targeted outreach, and also how a welcoming, culturally relevant presence is cultivated in order to both target those folks, recruit them, and retain them in the program.
So you're speaking a lot to recruitment to the Family Center and making sure that we're really getting out there and letting people know about the wonderful programs we have, but also in addition to that, the importance of seeking out programs like ours or others in the community. And I think that's what I'm hearing you ask about.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how we're taking what we know about our K through 8 outcomes and what we know about the opportunities that we have to perhaps alleviate some of the challenges that we're seeing K through 8 with our 0 to 5 programs, and how we target outreach in order to pull those folks in so that they can benefit from opportunities prior to getting to kindergarten and recognizing that perhaps they had not. Am I being clear?
Well, what I can say, if I understand you correctly, we do have a outreach program, and again, it's our family support advocates are big on that, and our families engagement specialist they do everything they can to try to get the program out. And this summer when I first started here, I went and walked door to door trying to talk to families in the community, go to events, public events, to really talk to families about the importance of early childhood education and the wonderful programming that we have here. We're not big enough program to service every family in the community that is in need, but there are others within the community that can service them from birth to 3 as well. And we're very supportive and want to send families information on those programs as well. I think this year, next, we're starting to work and plan some of our family education and family engagement programming for next year. And so part of that is going to be getting feedback from the families about what they're interested in. And additionally, like Evanston Cradles to Career just came out with this, we just published in partnership with the district, the parent activity guide. And we're going to try to do some programming around that next year, and that will be from birth to 5. Having workshops around the different sections of the book, so that families can come in and really get to know the guide as a useful tool, but additionally experience some additional hands-on activities and things that they can do at home with their students. So really trying to bring that to life and having discussions around it.
Thank you.
And I had one other question. My understanding is that meets expectations on TS Gold is not aligned with meets expectations for ISIL, and that it's exceeding expectations on TS Gold that's actually aligned with meets expectations
That is
on
what
ISIL?
we've done some crosswalks between TS Gold and Kids and TS Gold and ISIL. We didn't go as deep into ISIL because we heard that it might be going away. I don't know. Is it? Not yet. Okay. So anyway, but what we did notice in both of them was that the TS Gold widely held expectations for where 4-year-olds were supposed to be at the end of pre-K, 5-year-olds really going into kindergarten. It was a little bit lower expectation than what is on the beginning of the year ISIL and the kids assessment for that matter. The kids in the 2 academic areas, the kids assessment was not that well aligned. went over into what we call the Purple Band, which is the 5-year-old kindergarten band of TS Gold. So I think what's important there is that we're aware of that and that we know as a staff to try to accommodate for that. So we understand better what we're trying to teach to, and if we need to push a little bit further, we're going to try to do that. And then there's, still questions, a lot of questions in the community about whether we're pushing academics too far down and if the expectations in kindergarten are too high. And, there are a lot of questions about that, but I will go back to that data that we looked at before. The students who are arriving K-ready are the ones who are able to stay on track, and that's what we have to listen to that data. But anyway, the crosswalks, when we did the crosswalk with Kids Assessment and TS Gold, they were pretty well aligned in the social emotional ends, but we saw the same pattern in the academic ends as we did with the ISOL. That yes, it's just a little bit lower standards.
Okay. I would, I think, implore that we also let parents know that information, because I think that a lot of parents would look at this and say, oh, my child's meeting widely held expectations, we're good, we're ready, and then potentially be surprised by the fall data that they get about their child's readiness for kindergarten.
I think you're right, absolutely. I mean, and now that we're aware, and as we start to move forward, we will make sure that we're communicating where we're trying to aim.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just want to thank you and the team and your colleagues at JEH for giving such a comprehensive strategic plan for our most precious and again, most intelligent little human beings, right? I mean, I think, we know the research is really clear on early childhood and how we have this limited window of time to really make an impact in the way they develop. Again, human beings develop, we continue developing till the day we die, but from 0 to 5, I mean, and even just those first few months, I mean, it is just absolutely critical that we get it right. The strategic plan, I think, gives us this comprehensive approach to ensuring that happens. So thank you for being very thoughtful and taking the input from the Early Childhood Task Force. So I did have a couple of questions which I emailed to you, and I thank you for being super responsive, but just for the sake of the home crowd who's watching us today. I'll just ask the questions again. I know you answered some of the questions, but I know I missed the kids assessment. It was in there, so I thank you for pointing that out. And for the folks at home who don't understand what the kids assessment is, so the Illinois State Board of Education implemented the kindergarten individual developmental survey, which is an observational assessment. So the goal of it is to actually look at child's development in a holistic way. So not only are we doing, not only does kids measure literacy, but it also measures math as well as social, emotional, and physical development. So it continues some of the best practices, which we tend to, in the K-12 world, pull away, especially from our most marginalized students. You'll hear critics of early childhood criticize the effectiveness of early childhood when children hit the K-12 system, and there's studies out there that can definitely be debunked. Because what they'll say is that, well, early childhood is good when they're there, but when they hit 3rd grade, those effects diminish. Well, let's be very, very clear. What diminishes is the social, emotional, and physiological developmental approaches. And what we do in K-12, we just focus on literacy and math. And that's been a huge mistake in American education for the past 20, 30, 40 years that we've had. When we took away all those other supports, we took away kindergarten and play as a way to ensure that children are learning and are not only learning but also developing how to work together in groups, how to collaborate. Because at the end of the day, in the 21st century, we need to collaborate and we need to work together. especially in this very highly divisive time that we have, now more than ever. So some of the best practices that we have in early childhood need to be elevated. And I think part of the goal of kids, and then this is my day job, so I work at the State Board of Education's Early Childhood Division. We try to provide technical assistance programs across the state around making sure that kids gets implemented, and it also kind of helps elevate some of those best practices around social emotional, and as well as physical development and literacy and math. So it's really important that we kind of continue to keep our eye on the prize in regards to making sure that child development is front and center in a holistic way. And we will see dividends in regards to, test scores and all that other stuff that we really care about. So just wanted to put that out there for the folks in the public. So I appreciate that there's been an alignment. And then I know we'll be implementing the kids assessment next year. So have you, what does that look like in regards to implementation? Is training happening with the staff or?
I can answer that one.
Okay.
So KIDS is a kindergarten assessment. Right. And so we are working collaboratively right now with the teachers union, laying out a training plan. Educators should experience the one-day training prior to the end of school year, certainly before the middle of June. And we're locking in on those dates now. There's a small group that's going out to the networking day in Elgin
Wonderful.
Later this month. And then we're doing some work, that group, actually that is this week. This week, Thursday. And so we're going out there with some coaches and some teachers in order to also do some crosswalk to thinking about current assessments to the descriptors and to report cards. And so the plan is in development, and I think we're looking to be in a pretty good place for next year.
That's great. That's real. So thank you for that. And again, all of the trainings, all the coaching, that's for free. So it's part of the grant that around for the Preschool for All grant that we receive. So take it again. It's cost neutral, right?
I just want to say, two of my teachers from the ECC, as Stacy said, are going, and they're very excited to have this opportunity to get to know the assessment better and also to sit with the kindergarten teachers from District 65 as they start that journey as well.
And that's very powerful. And I can tell you that, so some of the concerns that Anya raised around, again, where parents believe that their children are doing great. And TS Gold, again, does measure children's full holistic development. But again, once you pull away those supports, those social emotional supports, we shouldn't be surprised that they don't do well, and specifically our marginalized students, that they don't do well because we've pulled away those social emotional supports. So again, and then that happens also with transitions between 5th and 6th grade, and even in 8th to 9th grade. So I mean, particularly for marginalized populations, where I've talked to parents, and it's these transitions that really we as a district should really look at and really try to find ways to ensure that we align the educational continuum, and then be able to provide some of this information and some of the strategic plans that in order to address those transitions for all students, but particularly our most marginalized students. Let's see. I also, so one of the things that we do is we monitor programs at the State Board of Education every couple of years, between every 3 to 4 years, and we use a tool called the environmental Early Childhood Environmental Rating Scale, ECHRS. So what we look for is, again, not only teacher and child interaction, which is the most important thing, right? But also making sure there's individualized plans, that professional development is being provided to our teachers, that the environment is set up in a way that children and teachers can facilitate building relationships and learning. So I know I did ask you to provide some of that information around, at least for PFA, and then I don't know if you want to share that or.
I don't have it in front of me in this report. If you have it on your email, you can read it out, because I know I sent it to you. But
you did.
It's like 5.1.
Yeah, so out of a 7-point scale, we have a 5.1, which is actually really good. And I know the strengths, so we measure strengths in the area of improvements, and I know the strengths are interactions, right? So we really look for individualization and the delivery of instruction, so that's good. We also our program structure, right? So that was again, that was one of the strengths. And in regards to areas for improvement, it's space and furnishings. Again, you have to, so one of the things that people have complained about, and again, we're trying to diminish is, we're so, early childhood is very anal when it comes to monitoring. Like you have to have the right amount of of toys and centers, and so that can be an issue. But actually, the new ECRS really is moving away from that and is really focusing on adult-child interactions. So that is a very promising thing. I know language and reasoning, which for me, with the English learners, that's something that I think we really need to work on, as well as activities where we need where areas for improvement. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see what else I have that I have.
I'll just follow up on the ECRS. We are having, we have StarNet coming in next month to do a walk of the building. And the idea there is that they can sort of give us some feedback about how we are in terms of working towards ECRS. And then at the very last days of school, we have a StarNet training for our PFA teachers, a full day training, so we can start thinking about how we're going to set up the classrooms for next year.
Got it. I also asked a little bit, and I see our Head Start colleague over there. I did want to talk a little bit about also, I know there's also monitoring that happens with early Head Start and Head Start, which, so I don't know if you want to share a little bit about and I know we just had a visit, but just for the folks at home, I want to revisit that because I know we had a really great visit. And
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina, the Early Childhood Quality Assurance Manager and the Early Head Start and Head Start Compliance Director. And for my update today, I was going to join you. So in March of 2018, we had our federal monitoring visit here at the district, and it measures two parts, and one is the Focus Area 2 monitoring protocol, and it looks at all of the content areas such as health and nutrition, eligibility, parent, family, and community engagement, transportation, technology, and fiscal are all of the components that are looked at in the Focus Area 2. And then they also look at CLASS, which is an adult-child interaction tool that measures the success of adult and child interactions. So we, as I stated maybe 2 or 3 board meetings ago, that we passed the all compliance areas for Focus Area 2, and there is a delay in the CLASS scores, which we received. If you are in the bottom 10% of your cohort, so anyone who was monitored during 2018 or in the bottom 10% of the national average, then your agency is required to recompete for the grant. And thankfully, we are above the 10% in both our cohort and the national average. So if we could give a round of applause to all of our frontline staff. So that is our teachers, our paraprofessionals, social workers, our secretarial staff, center directors, and also a special thanks to our compliance team who helps to monitor all of the components, not only for Head Start, but they're also then responsible for the Department of Children and Family Services, uniform guidance for the fiscal piece, to ensure that we're providing high quality programming. Prior to 2007, once you applied for the grant, for the most part, you had a lifetime of funding. But because there have been issues with the quality of programming in 2007, they implemented the designation renewal process, and that requires programs to recompete. One, because they wanted to provide competition and opportunities for other agencies to participate if they chose to, and a way to weed out low-performing programs. And there are agencies in the local area, the city of Chicago and on the North Shore, grantees who are required to recompete. And I'm just thankful for all of the hard work and dedication of, again, our compliance team and center staff that we're not in that category. So there are 7 things that could send us into recompetition. So if anything happens between now and April of 2020, those 7 things are if we have a substantial failure to comply with the Head Start performance standards, such as a threat to children's safety or misuse of grant funds, severe financial instability, such as bankruptcy or any other audit concerns, state or local license revocation for our Department of Children and Family Services license that we have, disbarment by any state or federal agency, such as our USDA Child and Adult Care Food Program, suspension from Head Start by the Health and Human Services Office, failure to establish appropriate school readiness goals, which Sharon has talked about today, and low scores in the classroom assessment scoring system, which I just informed everyone that we have performed above the national and our cohort average. And I'm not expecting any of those things to happen between now and April. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, I'm glad that you came back. I know you presented some of this information, but I wanted to get this full picture because again, we have, federal funding for some of our, for our 0 to 3 programs, as well as our 3 to 5, which is both federal as well as some state funding. Just for clarity for the folks at home. And I just want to thank you for all the work that you and the staff do. I actually would substitute taught a couple of times at JEH, and it's an incredible place. So thank you. And I think that's all I've got in regards to information. Oh, something around also parents. So just building off of what Anya says, I know, again, Head Start, has a policy parent committee. So again, you have within JEH, some entities that you can always reach out to as we talk about the, parent engagement and family engagement, and then sharing some of this wonderful news with them in order to help them be partners in regards to ensuring that we have a successful strategic plan. There's also the BPAC. I know there's the African American Caribbean Parent Group. So we have these entities, and Sharon, you pointed that out in one of your answers, that we're going to utilize those current entities that are engaging parents in order to get their input and work as partners with them. So thank you.
And Sharon did join us at one of our policy council meetings to go over the information last month. And she and I have been talking about being more intentional about the parent engagement piece of it, to connect the units that they're doing at school with the families and having them get involved in that way.
And both of the school leadership teams, the school climate team and the SIT, school instructional team, have identified the strong need to really be thinking about how we're engaging parents in the work we're doing. And so they're forming a subcommittee that's like going to be a joint subcommittee, right, Jen? Joint subcommittee where they're going to work, the SCIT and the SIT are going to work together to kind of figure out how to bring parents into all that we do at JEH.
That's great. And then also think about, I think about dual generational approaches, and I think a lot of that's built into some of the work that happens in early childhood, at least some of what we consider best practice. So I think as we talk about opportunity gaps, when we work in early childhood, not only impacts children, but it's supposed to impact the outcomes for our most marginalized parents as well. So if that means connecting with other community organizations and agencies that can help provide job trainings or college courses or what have you, I think that's something that, should be built into what we do, and should again can help us address that opportunity hoarding and then opportunity gaps that many marginalized communities are missing out on. So.
I just wanted to clarify something. It sounded like in your presentation that the benchmark year that we should be looking for growth from would be this 18-19 school year. And then we should look for meeting some of those goals that you've set
So the average readiness, students, average percent of students meeting readiness targets in kindergarten for the last 3 years has been 37%. It was like 38, 39, 30, or it averaged to 37. 37 was last year. So we use that as the mark. So it's the last 3 years were 37. That is the base from which I did the percentage growth. So when it's at 125%, I started from that to get to 50%.
Okay. So we should expect to see growth in the next school year. In 1920.
I'm not sure, because I just got here this year. I'm hoping that we'll see some growth this fall. I will not, we haven't implemented, this year has been about learning about the center and really trying to pull together the strategic plan. Next year is going to be more about implementation, so beginning to implement. So I would expect the following fall that we would start to see some boost.
Okay, so 2020, 2021.
I mean, if we see some this year, that is awesome, but.
All right, and then the other curiosity that I had is really for you, Paul and Kylie, is will this information appear in an early childhood update, or will it appear in our accountability and achieve reports?
We don't know yet. I mean, we're in the process of, as the board knows, rethinking how we present the achievement and accountability reports. So this is a nice opportunity. We want to make sure that the data are always aligned, so that as we're presenting data about our district, pre-K through 8, that we can actually make some strong arguments. So, so depending on how we realign the achievement and accountability report, I think we will make a commitment that the data will be live and center and aligned to the rest of the system. Is that a fair?
Yeah. And of course, in consultation, very close
With Sharon,
consultation
yeah.
with Sharon, right? This is her plan. We want to support this plan and work collaboratively on making sure that we're circling back and providing information to the community on how things are going. So nothing would be decided unilaterally. We'll figure that out, what makes sense for the context of the work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask a couple questions? Thank you so much, Sharon. So for the breadth and depth of the report and obviously the intention that went into it, for me, one of the first things that I was drawn to was actually in the cover memo, the root cause analysis, and just a salient 6 points around that, understanding it's not limited to, but I will say rarely do we get to the point of articulating root cause, and I deeply appreciate that, and I think it's something that we should all be kind of charged with trying to focus on, knowing that, these are our best projections of what the root cause is based on your analysis, so thank you for that. And I guess my charge would be, then when I look at the strategic plan, it is extremely thorough, extremely complete. I get concerned, just like I have gotten concerned over the last several years with our larger strategic plan, that that we may be trying to do too much and then lose the impact that we need. So, so I guess I would ask, as you're directly aligning those things in the root cause analysis to the strategies that you've come up with, within each goal, there are clearly 7 or 8 strategies, so that's 42 strategies. That's a lot of strategies, right? I'm not saying you can't do it, but I've been concerned over how much we've tried to do over the last several years as a district, and then diminishing the impact of an effect of that. So just would love to, you could tell by presenting it, you kind of stopped on the priority strategies, but even in thinking of that, because we don't want to diffuse what's going on, and there's only so much, obviously, change in a year that a system can take on. So I think that's just my caution, because we are all very, wanting to do it all, and these are all good things, but which of those good things do we think are the biggest priorities to get to the root cause, I guess would be my larger comment about the report, just as you're staggering times, because you have very aggressive goals in terms of growth. And then what can the board do, and what does the board need to do to support execution of that is the other question that I think we should be talking about in terms of resources, priority, attention, et cetera. Clearly, some of that will come back vis-a-vis budgets, but this is the work that has needed to be done, and so thank you for that. And we have to do our part of making sure that we support the execution of that. So that's just an open invitation, I suppose.
Well, thank you. And just speaking to the number of strategies, there are a lot, but a lot of them actually are pretty well integrated across the goals. And I think that these goals, they really all exist together. And part of the reason it looks so complex when you write it out is like human beings are very complex and school is very complex. And when you start to write it out, it looks like a lot of stuff. But I do think it's possible for us to be working on each of these goals at the same time. I mean, the real foundational goal up there is number one, because we have to be organized for continuous improvement if we're going to do any of this work. And we have begun that work this year. And I think I spoke about that at the last board meeting when I was here, just how incredibly impressed I am with the staff and how they have come along and really want to respond to the data and are working together. And my leadership teams, the school instructional team, the school climate team, how hard they have worked this year to start working towards improving our student outcomes and life at the center, and helping me to pull together this plan, and a whole bunch of my, a bunch of my SIT teachers went to a Illinois Summit on Teacher Leadership a few weeks ago and came back very charged up. I hardly know what to do with their energy. They've got so many ideas.
Nice.
So I think if we're all working together, if we can get goal one right, this rest will start to fall into place.
Thank you. And one other quick question. I've been getting I appreciate you talking at the end about the students with special needs and the supports district-wide. I believe I'm accurate that there are a number of students with special needs that are enrolled in the programs too. I think it would be helpful to understand that as we look at our demographics, and just the feedback that I've gotten from parents and advocates of the transition, to your point, that there are so many great supports here for families with special needs, and then the scaffolding is kind of pulled away because resources are more disparate and diffused across the district. And just as a theme, as we look forward and we look at our work and our challenges in serving students with special needs, and particularly, what we've seen in declining kind of performance, achievement, whatever, I wonder, similar to Sergio, whether we are providing these excellent supports and then we aren't maintaining the continuity, or how are we transitioning? And clearly that's not necessarily just your strategic plan, but it is part of that pre-K to 8 trajectory, and how do we model what's happening here, although we have a different execution model when kids get into the K to 8 classrooms. So keeping that front and center in the strategic report and the strategic plan, just around the students with special needs in addition to the other demographic groups and how they are faring as they enter, I think is important.
I would agree. That's good feedback, because I think I'm just thinking back to the first page where I didn't call out what the demographics are, in terms of students with special needs. But that is an incredibly important and large part of our population at the school. We have a lot of students who are integrated into general education. We try to do that as much as possible. And then we have 5 self-contained classrooms, 5 half-day self-contained classrooms, with very
devoted and dedicated teachers. And you're right, we do, I mean, because the school is an at-risk school and has had special education programming for the district there for so long, it is a little bit, has a feel of a therapeutic school in terms of the resources, and I'm sure once they get to the elementary school, it doesn't feel quite the same. But I do know that our special education teachers work hard to they're preparing right now for kindergarten transition meetings to try to provide that coherence for the students and their families, and really work hard and thoughtfully to try to guide the families to programs that will support and provide continuity for the students. And I know that Joyce works closely with them to try to, and with the special education supervisors to try to make sure that our students find the best placements possible.
A quick question. So the State Board of Ed just released a request for proposal for preschool for all, additional preschool for all funding. Wondering if we're going to go after it. And so the RFP allows programs to either expand current services, preschool for all programs, preschool for all expansion. Either you can expand, you can maybe get another classroom, or you can write for high-quality components like like an early childhood mental health consultant, parent liaison. So there's elements out there that. So I know we're going to have a webinar. So I'm advertising now this Wednesday, just to and it'll be a live one. And we'll have a recorded one just so we can get more information. But wondering if maybe we can look into that just to kind of get more resources in order to ensure that the strategic plan. We exhaust all resources that we can to ensure that the strategic plan is successful.
Well, you pricked my ears because I had heard that was only for expansion, and we have no more room.
Okay.
There's not a seat left.
Yeah, so it's not for that.
I'm interested in the resources, so yes.
Yeah, so then, it's not just for expansion. It's actually, you can actually apply for high-quality components, like a,
We'll have to look into it, because I got the notice the other day, and I sent it to Kim Kelly, who's our grant writer and watcher extraordinaire, and she did say that it's for expanding existing slots or creating new programs. So we'll have to see.
Or high-quality components. So I think that's part of our, ISB needs to work on communicating a little bit better. I will, yeah. But again, this Wednesday, we'll have a live webinar, and then it'll be recorded, so if you want to look into it.
You have some?
This is really inspiring. I mean, you started in the beginning, you almost started explaining how learning in your school is play, and then you put a complete professional front on early childhood education, and my kids would say, nailed it. The goals are all people-driven, right? Being well organized for improvement. You spent your first year auditing the system, and now you have goals, and they're aggressive, and we're all going to worry if it's too aggressive or whether we can meet them, and go for it. The philosophy of HR is find the right people and get out of the way, so thank you.
Goals should be audacious.
Yep.
I just have a few things. Mostly, I think my comments have been shared already by colleagues, and I did email some comments and questions earlier. Thank you. I mean, this is a really, the format of the presentation was very helpful with the strategies, the research goals, and measures. And the root cause analysis and the explicit use of the racial equity impact assessment tool was something that I really appreciated. And so thank you for including that. You talked already about the assessments and how those are going to be changing. I would encourage that we all are thinking also, because I know that we're looking at DRA data to look at what's happening up through third grade. And I know Sergio always talks a lot about looking at 0 to third grade alignment, and knowing that DRA is something that also we are looking to replace. So just thinking comprehensively and adaptively about our assessments, knowing that we are going to be making changes over the next few years is something just to keep in mind. And I can see you're already doing it, so I don't have confidence that that will continue. Also, we did, and when we looked at the Early Childhood Task Force report last year, we did have the data disaggregated by IEP status, and we were able to see growth by students with IEP versus students without IEPs, and there are opportunity gaps there as well. So I would encourage us to continue to look at that and look at how, noting that we do have special services housed in this building, how we can support strengthening that, particularly in the early years. I would encourage continued collaboration with the extensive early childhood community in Evanston. I know that part of what prompted this is that there are disparities between the outcomes of students who are going through JEH versus private schools. I know this is a work of Cradle to Career is working on community-wide measures for early childhood programs. So there's a lot of good things, I think, that we can teach those programs and that we can learn from those programs. So I highly recommend continuing to collaborate and see how that can play out into the strategies that we're looking into. And I do want to say, one of the questions I had was, I was surprised when I first looked at it. I think I only saw the word play once or twice in the whole report, and I was like, knowing that play-based curriculum is what is recommended by child development experts, I was a little surprised by that. So I appreciated your preface at the beginning that play is the work of children.
How we do school.
And it's how we do school, and it's how kids learn, and that is really just, if we're looking at data, if we're looking at research, that's what we need to be doing. And then if you can give just a really quick, the MTSS behavioral data, is that the same as are we looking at ODR data? Is that something different? Because I'm wondering how, I guess, looking at discipline in our early childhood programs and knowing that we experience racial disparities throughout our system, even starting in early childhood. Like, how are we looking at that in the strategic plan, and how are those goals? What kind of goals do we have around that?
Well, so the MTSS data, I think you zoomed in on one point in the plan where I kind of put a little vague thing about we're going to have improved MTSS behavioral data. And that's because we do have a lot of behavioral MTSS intervention plans this year, but I was not able to gather up and capture all the data to give an accurate baseline about where it was starting. We're planning to take a look at that this summer. But we're not issuing any ODRs. This year we didn't, and we're still trying to figure out what that means in an early childhood landscape. We obviously don't do any suspensions. Students do occasionally, people ask me to come help and remove the child occasionally. I would say it feels to me like it's not been happening. I don't know, I wasn't here last year, but as much as I heard. And part of the reason I moved away from having people enter data into SWIS is I looked at the SWIS data, so that's where we store, for anybody who doesn't know, where we put data for office discipline referrals, better known as ODRs. And I looked at the data when I got here, and it was alarming and confusing and didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And I was sitting with my elementary school principals, and I said, can I look at your ODR data? Because this is I think very well-intentioned people were entering data at the center last year kind of incorrectly, just for like minor infractions, or if a teacher was having problems. It wasn't necessarily anything that I would say qualifies as an office discipline referral. Nobody was ever even referred to the office. They just wrote something on a plan and then handed it to a secretary, and it got entered in as a major incident. So the data that was there, I don't think accurately reflects what has been going on behaviorally. I mean, young children have behavioral issues. They're little kids. They're learning. What we really practice and what we're going to be emphasizing more is restorative practice. And I think that happens very intuitively in early childhood programs. And where we're going to be moving towards is understanding it more intentionally, how we're doing it. But we use a program called Conscious Discipline, which really is all about, when an incident happens, first of all, trying to make sure everybody's safe, separating people if we need to, and helping people to, the people involved to get to a place of calm, re-regulate, and then help them process through that, and then find ways to repair if it's something between two individuals, to start teaching them how to repair with one another, and then how to reintegrate into the classroom without shame, and to have conversations about that all along the way. And that is really how we deal with discipline in early childhood, and I think it feeds very naturally into restorative practice, and that's the direction we're going.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Is that it?
Can I underscore a couple? First of all, to the board members, thank you very much for diving in as you did. It's really helpful for us as we think about moving forward to hear the comments and how we can fine tune. I want to underscore a couple things. One, to the staff. The staff have been really engaged in this work and engaged in the day-to-day work on doing data dives, sort of that juxtaposition of data and play, and not shying away from either, because that's how we're going to actually make a difference in the lives of kids. So real just pats on the back to the staff for engaging in this process. And then the work of structuring this around vision, around strategies, around research, around data, around demonstrable goals is what we are about. And I give a lot of credit to Sharon and her team, and to Joyce and to Stacy, who've been working together as we've been working as a team to move forward. And then one small little thing, everything that we wish for as we move forward this year was also to align the early childhood work with the rest of our system. And Anya asked a question about that earlier, about the test scores. So you just made a point about sitting with your elementary school principals to talk about ODR data. Sharon is sitting with the elementary school and the middle school principals on a regular basis, so we're not living in a silo. Sharon is also sitting with colleagues in the early childhood community. Your colleagues who are part of the staff are going to local, regional, national conferences to actually really learn and engage. Not that they haven't in the past, but there's just a wonderful vibe that has existed downstairs that is actually going up a click because of all these connections. So I want to give you credit for the work that you've done over the year, and really to the whole team for engaging and driving and getting to where we are. Now, as you started, are we ready for early childhood? Are we ready for early childhood? Game on. Let's go. And,
Game on.
But thank you.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both, ladies.
Committee reports, I think we already got our Head Start early childhood report. I don't think you had anything else to add, right, Katrina? All right, perfect. We have a policy meeting coming up next month. I think we're still working on the agenda, but one of the topics I know some board members have asked when we are getting an update on the discipline policy and some of the information to get out to the community around our policies around bullying and the new protocols around racial incidents. So that is, the plan is for that to happen on May 13th, because it's such a discussion that I think community members will be interested in. We are going to look into getting that policy meeting televised so that we can have greater engagement. And then finance, other committee meetings. Does anybody have any comments on them? All right, with that, I find this regular board meeting adjourned at 10:07.